here, they're all essentially all just hand sculpted, really, Gang.studio as to how to go about doing that. You'll essentially get to the stage here where your head will look like this, and I consider that, at this point here, like any sort of like really, really sort of big secondary details, or, at this point, some people do refer to these as tertiary volumes, by the way, like the smaller little volumes that I have here, and then what I commonly call tertiary details, I actually usually call those, or a lot of people call these surface volumes. Okay. I'm kind of blurring the line here between secondary shapes and tertiary shapes and surface shapes for me. I consider, like that there are 3 detail levels and not 4. At some point, it just becomes, how do you like to name stuff, really? But, for me, essentially, I consider these larger bumps, even these larger wrinkles, to almost be part of the secondary shapes there. So I do have a tendency to sculpt the major wrinkles out, and the major bumps, the major volumes of the face at the secondary stage before I start to create the tertiary stage, But so far, like even just getting to this point really is really just, once again, just the job of, you take your references and you simply go to town. Really, you take your clay brushes and you just have some fun. Really, there's really nothing all that special so far. I'm just pretty much hand sculpted pretty much everything here, just using the standard clay brushes that we have. Really, even these kind of wrinkles, plenty of places I could probably make these better. I was playing around with the streaks option too in the alpha tab. Still not sure I like it. Actually, no, I do like it, but I haven't quite figured out how I want to use it yet. But I feel as if there's something interesting there to use that. But yeah, like essentially all the secondary wrinkles, like all the major wrinkles you guys can see here, they're all essentially all just hand sculpted, really, I just went in there with my clay brushes and I was like, okay, I want wrinkle here, extends all the way down there, just having some fun here with my clay buildup there. And yeah, so there's nothing essentially so far that is really all that special in terms of workflow. It's all just pure sculpting, really. Oh, that's awkward. Always does that after a quick save. But then, but then you do reach a point here that you're like, okay, so I want to start to create my tertiary details, right? So it's like, okay, we do have to polish the surface a little bit, okay? The surface is a little too noisy right now so that we can start to use this to create our tertiary details. So there is a polish pass that needs to happen over the whole surface before you can really move on there, And so those who know me essentially know that I like to use I like to use a lot of clay tubes for that specifically, I'm more and more getting comfortable with the clay buildup, that I feel more and more like using it within my workflow there. But for polishing, I still largely default to using the clay tubes and having an embed set to 0 there. So, if I want to polish this, just like I had here, if you guys compare again, this is my rough surface. This is my polished surface ready for tertiary details. I want the surface to still be a slightly sketchy, slightly noisy. That is important because that will get me simply a lot of interesting texture to the model for free afterward, right? So, I don't want to kill all the detail there. I don't want to go over this with a huge smooth brush and just kill all all the details, okay? Don't do that. But I do want to tone down a lot of these tertiary detail, or rather, a lot of this surface noise that I have here, right? So the process really just I take my clay tubes and I just go and I simply flatten the surface and I remove or rather, a large part of the imperfections. But see, one of the things that I do pay attention to at this stage, okay? I still pay attention to try to keep a lot of that directionality in there that I really like. I'm not gonna kill all the directionality that is in there. I'm gonna keep a little bit of it because I also would have to rebuild all of that, and if I get rid of all the directionality that's in the surface right now, it's just gonna wind up my surface is good. It's just gonna wind up looking like super bland after the fact. So I really would want to just go in here and I want to flatten my surface very slowly, very gently. And make sure that, especially around the wrinkles, see, I really love this here. I love that my wrinkles are very sort of uneven. Okay, there's nothing worse than a wrinkle that you just take in like a damp sander brush. There's nothing worse than just taking damp sander brush and just be like, there's a wrinkle. That's not convincing. That doesn't look like a wrinkle. That's not appealing. I don't want to look like, it's like I don't know if you guys watched Prometheus, the movie there. They said something in there that resonated with me, and it was really that resonated with me really, really deeply. They said God does not work in straight lines. Now, whether you believe in God or not, that is a different question. But what is interesting is that when you look at nature, you're simply, that applies to faces too. You simply do not have straight lines, especially when you start looking at wrinkles from a real close-up perspective and stuff. Now, let's bring up a reference here. Let's look at a reference so that we have a good idea of what we are talking about here, right? All right, Ed Harris, right? If you guys start to look at these little wrinkles here. Look at how like broken up all of this is. All the surface here kind of creates all this kind of weird shape to it. Even here, right? Like there's like a lot of little bumps. There's a lot of little pinches to the wrinkle and stuff. There's all this nice little noise in there, for lack of a better term at this point, that builds within the wrinkles themselves. Even these here, right? See, like you will often see something like that too. You will have a wrinkle that was sort of, like that collectively is a much longer one there that kind of breaks up and becomes a lot of series of smaller lines that are all sort of next to each other there, and all more or less go in different directions and stuff like that, right? So wrinkles do not travel in straight lines, or as clean, nice straight lines. So if you just take a damp sander brush and you just go in there and just like do a line, and then you're like, yeah, there you go, I got my tertiary or got my wrinkle in there, you're making a mistake. And so I like to keep a lot of that sketchiness left over from the sketching process, because that is my broken up wrinkles that I'm getting pretty much for free. All right, I've lost you guys. Let me just bring up my windows. Okay, here we go. Oh, I'll keep an eye on subscriber chat, by the way. I just never do that, by the way. Unfortunately, I get in the flow. Let me see if there's anything interesting in there. Damn Setter 2 shared by Christine. Thank you, Christine. You are a lifesaver. You always are. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah. So yeah, you want to go in here, you want to just gently brush your surface, think that this is a nice juicy uh spare rib, and you're just putting some barbecue sauce on there before you're gonna put it on the barbecue. There you go. God, I'm hungry now. And you just slowly go over the surface, as if you're putting some barbecue sauce on top of there. What am I saying? Barbecue sauce. There's sugar in there. Shouldn't use that. Um, yeah, so you just go, just have some fun. Clay tubes, embed 0. Very gently get rid of a lot of that noise, but don't kill all the noise. Don't get rid of all of it, Keep some of that in there. Okay, one thing I do like to do though, okay? As you know, I don't use my smooth brush. I don't use the smooth brush. But it doesn't mean that we can't smooth a little bit, okay? Or that we can't use smoothing a little bit to our advantage, okay? Like, the reason why I'm at war with the smooth brush isn't because inherently smoothing is bad as much as just because people over abuse it. People learn about the smooth brush, and then every time they have a problem on their sculpture, they just use a smooth brush to try and fix it, and it often leads to this bland and tasteless and very CG looking kind of effect to the surface there. So it's not that it's inherently bad to smooth as much as just people over abuse, if there is a way to over abuse something, because I think that abusing is already over something, right? So over abuse that is quite a lot, I think. So people over abuse a smooth brush. So that's kind of why I'm at war. It doesn't mean we can't smooth a little bit. There are places where you kind of have to start to smooth a little bit. Like, see, one of the downsides of using clay tubes to flatten your surface like this and just gently sort of remove those imperfections. The problem with clay tubes often is that, which is similar to using, more or less similar to using trim dynamic at that point. One of the issues that you have is that it becomes very hard sometimes to deal with very curvy surfaces like this here, like the nose itself. Okay, if I just go back here on top here, if I zoom in enough and I take a small enough brush, I can flatten this in a way that's very satisfactory. But sometimes you don't necessarily want to be zoomed into this degree, like depending on what you are working on. And so sometimes the like this is actually pretty good right now, but because the clay brushes flattens the surface, like in this case, I'm actually managing pretty well this year. But because the clay tubes, let me just here add a little bit to sort of round this out or make this a bit better there. But like here, I'm probably always going to have a bit of a hard time getting like a really nice volume that's nice, not too noisy, but that also is a bit curvy, Because like the moment that you go too much here with the clay tubes, it always kind of flattens it in a way, and it kind of removes some of the curvature there. So there is a point where you especially have these kind of tighter curvatures to your surface. So it's like, yeah, it's a pretty legitimate place to go on top of that with a smooth brush, because if you try to always try to clay tubes this out, you'd have to zoom in really, really close to be able to like do that. So it's like, yeah, screw it. Let's just smooth this, right? Like at some point, we don't have all day either, right? Let's just get rid of it like that. No one's going to be able to notice, and I will keep a secret. But there are many ways to smooth. And the default smoothing isn't necessarily always the approach that will lead to the most naturalistic result. And so I want to propose 2 ways of smoothing a surface that are different than the standard smooth, or rather are perhaps variations on, but that I really think that you guys ought to explore. Because they are very, very interesting, and often they give a nicer appearance to the surface. And the first one is a smooth directional. So there is such a thing called smooth directional. Now, there is a brush for it that exists that is called smooth directional. You can kind of select it within your brushes there. But I use an alternative way to access the smooth directional because that's how I am. What I've actually done is that I've put in my interface here. You guys look at my interface that I have here. So I have put down this little weighted smooth mode option here in my interface. You can actually find this if you go to brush. And then afterward, if you go to, let me just put this on the side there. We don't need material. Let me get rid of that. Not sure why that's there. So if we go to brush and we go down here, eventually we get to a place called smooth brush modifiers. And if we open that and you guys take a look in there, there is in there somewhere. I guess I'll continue working on this while I'm explaining this because I've seen it enough times. I need to look at it. There is something in there called the weighted smooth mode. And that will essentially change your smooth brush from its standard default effect, I suppose, over to, if I put my cursor over this right now, you have all these different options in there, as you can see. So if you put it to 0, standard, 1, stronger, 2, valence, 3, whatever. I'm not going to read all of these, but these are essentially different ways that you can use the smooth brush.
Hello?
Yeah?
Your pictures in the way you can't see it.
Woohoo! All right. Thanks, Christine. I knew I can always count on. I so appreciate that you are there. Yeah, thanks. I am exactly doing it right now. Cool. Let me see, actually. Let me see. Oh, yeah, take a look at this. Ooh, I got a good solution for you guys. Why don't I take this? Here we go. Why don't you take a look at that? All right, ain't that nice? Actually, if I put my cursor over this, I'm still not going to see the tooltip. Anyway, let me just show this then. So, weighted smooth mode. I invite you guys to put your cursor over this. And if I put myself here for now. So, if you guys take a look at this here, right? So, if we take a look at that, so we have number 1, standard, or rather stronger, valence, subdiv, all these different modes, essentially. And these are all different modes that we can use our smooth brush as. And so playing around with the slider will give you a different effect to your smooth brush. And I find that some of these they just give an effect that's just a bit more interesting. And one of them will become very, very important once we get to the directionality layer there that we will build on top of that. And so the mode that I like to use here the most, actually, first, if you put this to number 1, you will have a stronger smooth brush, which is already kind of interesting when you're trying to smooth out high frequency details or you're at a high subdivision level and it doesn't smooth fast enough for you. That's actually very, very useful, first of all. But what I also like to use is the smooth directional. So number 4 there. that will put you in smooth directional mode. And I really like the effect that that actually has. Now, if you want to actually change this value, okay, this is kind of weird because if you just take this and put it to number 4, it's not actually gonna work. If you smooth, unless they changed it. Have they changed this? It would be nice if they changed it. Let me just do a quick test here. Oh yeah, they have changed this. Okay, I guess they have fixed that. So it used to be that if you change this particular value here, you had to hold down Shift so that you could actually change this, else the change wouldn't do anything at all. But I can see that, I'm not sure in which version they have fixed that, but it has to be in a recent one. They have made it so that now you can just play with the slider the way that it's intended. So yeah, I've put this down in my interface here because I do change this from time to time when I am playing around with these weighted smooth move. And I want a different effect for it. Let me bring myself down here. Here we go. Like that. I'll stay here so that, well, I guess I'll just try not to use this. I'll just try not to use this tray here. This is dangerous to use. Let me just get rid of that then. So yeah, weighted smooth mode, then put that to number 4. And if you put it to number 4, then you will wind up having your smooth directional brush. And why is that great? Because as the name says, it will smooth following your brush stroke, which is really, really cool, right? So if I smooth this using number 1, okay? Let's say that I have some problems with these wrinkles here. You can see how wobbly all of this is right now. It's not all that great, and cleaning this up using the clay brushes would actually be kind of hard because there's a lot of skin folds and stuff like that. It's not impossible. It's just hard to do so. So yeah, if I go here and I start to smooth this, right? In fact, it would be better to do this at a lower subdivision level so that it moves a bit faster there. I'm essentially gonna, like, sure, I'm gonna wind up having something that is straighter, but I'm also gonna blur out the actual crease that was there that I really, really like, right? So that's actually kind of a problem. But if I use my trusty smooth directional, so I put myself as number 4 here, and I go back over this, and as I smooth, I'm really making sure that I keep my brush at the same angle. I follow the exact wrinkle that I have. I don't smooth in a different angle, else it's going to break it up. As I will smooth this using my smooth directional, you can see that I'm straightening out the wrinkle. See? It's becoming straighter and straighter, but I am limiting the amount of blurriness that happens to it. You'll probably get a bit of it, a little bit. Probably get a bit of blurriness to it, but by and large, you will do a much better job of keeping the structure of the wrinkle there, so that you don't lose too much sharpness to it, you know? So this smooth directional, super useful, super great, you know? If I do like another demonstration here, perhaps I can just, once again, just go over here, smooth this out, you know? And as you can see, I'm actually killing a lot of the noise that's on the surface, but I am doing a minimal destruction as far as the actual wrinkle itself is concerned, if you will. It just it preserves that nice sharpness there, but it does remove some of that noise that I don't like to have. So you can do that over wrinkles that are very curvy like these, or surfaces that are very curvy, and it will limit as much as possible the amount of volume loss that you do as you are smoothing, but you will be able to get a surface that is cleaner using this particular trick. So that's the first thing that I like to do. I like to use smooth directional for very curvy, sort of bubbly, rounded surfaces like these. Very, very useful. Second thing, okay, that I like to do to also kind of help me just smooth out and get rid of some of these, or like get rid of some of this particular surface noise that is left over from the sculpting process. Another thing that I like to do that is also very, very useful to do, and I privilege this over using the smooth directional, but truth be told, at some point, it just doesn't make much of a difference, really. It's just really just up to you. The other thing that I like to do is to use another smoothing option that is applied to your brush tip directly. Because you can have a combination of sculpting, flattening, and smoothing at the same time. You can actually do that. And once again, in my interface here, I have this little slider here called Auto Smooth Strength that you guys can see. Now, this shortcut that appears here, Z, may be the default shortcut. I'm not sure. Probably isn't now to think about it, because I think Z may be like undo or something actually, so it's probably not that by default. But there is this thing here that is called smooth that you can turn on, and you can also find this in your brush palette there. So let's go in there. Let's go in our brush palette. Let me put it on this side here so I don't do the same mistake twice. And if you go down here, you go to modifiers. Modifiers. There's a little smooth value here. Why don't you take a look at that? And so once more, I've put that into my interface because I like to have access to that. And this is what it does. Okay, so you take this, you crank it up, let's say number 4, something like that. And what it's going to do, it's going to do a combination of flattening on your clay tubes in this case. It's going to do a combination of flattening and smoothing. Every time that you do a brush stroke, it's going to apply a stroke of smooth directional at the same time. That kind of follows it. I'm not sure it's smooth directional if it's just smooth, but it has a nice directionality to it that I really particularly like. So I like to also kind of turn on that just to also kind of help me to just reach a point of my surface that is less noisy, a bit faster there, so that we don't spend the whole day doing this, you know. But I mean, by and large, just polishing your surface like this isn't necessarily that long. It doesn't take that much time, you know. And so yeah, let me just crank this up here. Let me put it to 10 so we can sort of see it a bit better there. And let me lower by 1 my subdivision count. Yeah, so it's just going to make it so that your brush will just be a bit cleaner to use. It will result in a smoother surface a lot faster there, you know, than if you're not using that. I don't want to put that too high, okay? If you put that too high, then at some point it starts to become a little too, like, you're back at just removing a bit too much of that surface detail there. And right now it's cranked up to 10 and it's surprisingly not smoothing. Let me put my weight smooth mode back to 0. Actually, now to think about it, it's possible that these two values are influencing each other there. Not actually sure now to think about it. But yeah, it's it's just going to help you to smooth your surface out and remove some of these imperfections a bit better there. So that is also something that you can do on these curvier surfaces from time to time, just to help you sort of smooth it out at a bit of a faster rate there. My embed is set to 2, which is why it feels a bit wonky to me right now. Let me put that to 0. Yeah, and so that's the process. This is the polish process. You can polish a head like this in about an hour or so. Takes about an hour, perhaps. You can do it faster. You can do it slower than that. Ultimately, I don't want to kill all the energy of the strokes. I want to keep that, and I especially want to be very wary when I am around some of these very sharp lines that I want to keep in different places, because I really do want to preserve a lot of this information that's there, that are the result of the sculpting process, So I want to be wary, but that's pretty much the workflow. Just go to town, like, okay, I want to smooth this out. I want to remove some of this imperfection. You guys can see I can gently polish this wrinkle here. Maybe improve the connection here. Maybe I want to. In certain cases, I'll certainly get my clay buildup brush back out here. I'll be like, no, actually, I kind of want to extend this all the way here. It's kind of wrinkle here. I kind of want to extend it further inward the shape. Maybe I want to bring this out because maybe it's a little too wobbly right now. Sometimes I want to do something like this, like that. Maybe I want to extend this one like this wrinkle like this, or this skin fold, I guess. Wrinkle would be in between those. Maybe I want to do something more like that here, And then I'll switch back to my clay tubes and polish this a little bit. Maybe a bit of smooth directional here, a little bit. Just to go faster towards something that I kind of like. And I go like directly over the wrinkles, just to remove some of those imperfections. Now, as we said, it's possible to overdo it. I always want to be aware of that. But that's essentially the whole process, So like there are places where maybe you want this to go faster. Maybe I want to kill a little bit of this volume here. There are places where maybe you want to go a bit faster, especially once you have like the cranium box and like stuff like that, You guys can see I've been overly sketchy with this. I was just like, I just wanted to get it in there very, very quickly when I was kind of sculpting it. So for this case here, I would probably just go a lot faster like that. I would be a lot less gentle. Also that I can sort of flatten the surface a lot faster there. Not necessarily spending hours on this because probably won't see it too much. Not sure we'll really see this in the end. Maybe there's a little detail here that's kind of missing. Let me sculpt that in. Little, I forgot the name of this, unfortunately. forgot the name of this little bump here. If anyone knows it, let me know. I did have a class on that. Something about occipital something. Anyway, so yeah, I mean that's kind of the process, right? You just go in here, just gently brush this like a nice juicy mutton chop that you're about to cook on the barbecue. You can tell I've been listening a lot of Game of Thrones lately. And you just go ahead, remove imperfections. Try to watch out when you're in the wrinkles. Don't kill the wrinkles. And yeah, you can see like you can actually do like it doesn't take that much time. You know, just put yourself some nice music or something, or listen to a nice podcast. You know, you don't have to give it a lot of brain power, but you still want to be attentionate while you're doing this. And so on and so forth. All right, guys. That's kind of it for the cleanup process. So once you have done your cleanup process, you've reached a point. Kind of looks like this. You guys can see once more before, after there, after my cleanup process is done. Around the ears, I probably could have cleaned it up a little bit more. Okay, I probably could have done a bit more cleanup around the ears. But you guys can see sort of elsewhere the kind of result that I have. You know, it's nice. There's still a bit of directionality to it. There's still a bit of texture to it. Not too much. All of this will blend into all those tertiary details we will add, and it will make it look really, really nice. You know, it's kind of like a bit of seasoning before you cook the steak there. Okay, let's take a 15-minute break, guys. So it's 1:45 right now. Let's take 15 minutes. I will see you guys at 2 p.m. sharp. Enjoy the break. Let's continue where we left off. Sorry if I was a bit late there. I was eating a bit of food. I'm trying out a keto diet just for a while, just to try it. I don't have any weight to lose, but people are saying, "Oh, more energy" or something. Like, oh, to try that. Yeah, just to give it a try. I'll see how it goes. But like, it's like I'm just at the start of it, and like it feels as if I'm so hungry all the time because I don't eat carbs now, and it's like my body's like, "Give me carbs." I'm like, "No, here's some fat instead." No, it's not what I want. So yeah, it's kind of special. Okay, so what happens once we're done with our polish pass and we want to continue there? So let's start building our layers one at a time. And let's see how it goes. All right. So I have sent you guys 2 files in the handout this week. So there is there's ZTL, which is a lone skin pore that we'll talk about later. But there is also a texture. So there is a sort of a texture that I think it's called pore as well. Not quite pores, but you guys have probably seen it. Let me bring it up here. It's really nothing all that special. I just went in Photoshop and just added a bunch of dots, really. It's really nothing all that magical to it. You could easily make your own, of course. This one here. And so these aren't skin pores. They're too, they're too simple to be big and large pores the way that we would have on a face, in different, like especially on the cheeks and stuff. They're a bit too large to be something like that, but they still are very useful for a lot of things. So we'll start by using this here, and we'll we'll do a whole bunch of stuff with this. We'll build a whole bunch of layers just using this, because this is essentially just a series of dots of different sizes that are all more or less spaced in a somewhat organic manner, but are still spaced relatively evenly there, you know? Which isn't something that you can do with all the noise passes that ZBrush has at our disposal, which we will use. You don't actually can get to somewhere that looks like this because it simply does not have a way to create to scatter points like these or samples of something that do not overlap. That's the biggest issue if you use like a spray brush, you know. So I don't use a spray brush for like anything really when it comes to tertiary details, because of the overlapping nature of the details that it creates, which I think is really, really bad. We could perhaps use a spray brush for like noisy details, perhaps, that we don't care that overlap. But for the most part, for the face, we usually don't want to have that overlap there. So that is a problem. Okay, let me go ahead here. What else could I... No, let's just go with this. I wanted to maybe delete a few subtitles or something, but we can continue with this. Okay, so essentially, for me, it's all about layers, really, when we are starting to build something like this. Let me go ahead here and actually, yes, okay, so I will duplicate this. And I will get rid of the layers so that we can really start fresh here. So let me just bake all with all the layers turned off. So this is pretty much our starting point then. Go ahead, let me turn this one off. This is our starting point, right? So I like to start with a directionality pass first. Now, if you are using the head that I have given you guys, you have did your wrapping process. Your head will essentially look like this. Your polygroups will look of a different color, but that doesn't really matter. Your head will pretty much look like this at this point. And with this head that I have given you guys last week as a handout, there is also UVs with this head here. So it's not just the geometry, but the UVs are also in there. There is also clean UVs, which means that we can start to tile things on our surface in ZBrush using the UVs, which is what we will do here to start building our detail paths. So I like to start with this kind of, with the skin pores. That's kind of the place I kind of like to start. And I like to start by building a general directionality pass over the surface. And so let's do that together. Let's create a new layer. All right. At the same time, I will create a morph target. I will store a morph target at this stage to make sure that I have that will become very, very useful. In fact, necessary even. So we'll go ahead and do that. Now, by default, of course, you would go down to your morph tab here, or your morph menu, or however you want to call that. And you will get in here, you would delete, you would store. You can see that I'm using my own custom interface for my own personal comfort. So I hope that you guys can still follow along. But essentially, for me, what I have done is that I have created myself a custom menu that I can simply access by pressing F here. And I can go in here and I can delete or store a new morph target. I have my little buttons here. You can see that when I put my cursor over these four buttons, that the buttons also get highlighted at the bottom right of the interface. So these are essentially just the morph target buttons that I have copied here. So I will be using these, okay? But when I do use them, I will be mentioning what function I am using, and you can simply use the the exact same function within your morph menu that you have in there if you do not have a custom interface with the morph buttons placed in there somewhere that is easier to access for you. So, okay, so then what I will do then is that I will simply, if I have a morph target, I will delete it. And I will simply store a new morph target. We can only have one, so we always have to delete the morph target that was there previously if one had already been created there. So I have both a layer in record mode and I have a morph target that is stored. So to create this directionality pass over the surface, and I suppose I can already go in here and name these. Now, sometimes I joke directionality, like that. Directionality. Now, I sometimes, joke that I don't name my layers, and that is often true. But truth be told, if you do tertiary details, especially, you really ought to name your layers and really take the time, take the few seconds that it takes to do that. Because if you don't, we're going to build a pretty long layer stack here. And if you can't actually name your layers, or if you haven't named your layers, you will never see the end of it. You'll never get back and be able to find out what you have done previously. So please do name your layers when you do work with tertiary details, specifically for a face. Because we will be adding a lot of these. Okay, and now what I'm going to do, okay, we're going to use the surface noise plugin of ZBrush to scatter a bunch of samples of this texture I have shown you guys previously over our surface using our UVs, because we have UVs. So it's super simple, guys. Let's go in here then to our surface menu that we have. Open that. And I'm going to turn on this little noise button here. I'm going to turn that on. And you guys can see that now he's starting to be a little sick. He's a bit sickly. He's got all these little bumps that are starting to appear over the surface. That's just a result of a previous noise that I've played with. So your noise will look different when you do open this here. I'm not sure if I can reset it, unfortunately, but I'll show you guys what you need to change at the very least. So you click on this little edit button that I've just shown you guys here if you want to edit the noise that is applied on your mesh there. So let's do that. Maybe if I delete, will that revert back to its default state? I don't know. I could try it. I've never done that. Let's give it a try. Let's just delete here. Oh yeah, that reverts it back to its starting point. That's actually kind of cool. I didn't actually know that. Okay, so this is pretty much where you would be then if you were to launch this for the first time. And so what you have here is if you start to zoom in this little window here, this little noisemaker window that just appeared. If you zoom in here, you can see that there's starting to be this little, this very sort of sand cast look to the surface that is sort of appearing there. Almost as if this was a piece of metal that's been casted in a sand mold. That's kind of the effect that you would get there. And you can actually tweak these settings here. There's this little noise scale value, which you can see if I increase this, now suddenly we have much bigger noise, right? Super simple. This thing here, this noise maker is extremely powerful. We will spend a lot of time in this today. We will do a lot of stuff with it. You'll see by the end of the class, you will be a convert. You will start to think through all the different ways you can use this, because this is extremely, extremely good to use. But okay, in this particular case, okay, now there's a lot of functions left and right. I won't explain everything about the noise maker. I will simply explain what I do. So, if you follow along and do exactly what I'll do, you'll understand what's going on. It's not that complicated either, but if it's the first time that you are looking at it, perhaps it is a lot to take in there. So do try to follow along, I suppose. So at the bottom left of the screen here, there is a place that is called alpha on and off that you guys can see. I'll go ahead here and click on that. And this will allow me to load an external texture within ZBrush. So there's this little dialog box that just appeared. In my case here, so I want to load my skin 01.png that I've given you guys. That's what I want to load in there. So I want to select it, click open, and then not a whole lot of stuff happens. But you can see now that I have this alpha that is selected at the bottom left of my noisemaker window, and that is fantastic. So what I'm going to do now, okay, I'm going to switch here. Where it says 3D here, I'm going to switch over to UV mode. So as opposed to have a 3D projection effect from this alpha over the surface, this will simply use the UVs to project, or rather to, at this point, map out and tile my texture over the surface. And afterward, I can use this little alpha scale value here. Now, I'm not sure whether I need to go up or down. I assume I have to go down, actually. So let's bring the slider down. And a whole lot of nothing happens. And if nothing happens while you play around with this setting, it may be that the strength of this particular alpha is simply too low. So let's look here, okay, through the setting that we have. First of all, mix basic noise. Let's put that to 0. We don't want any of that. Let's just get rid of that. I don't want any of that mix of that basic noise that kind of appears there by default. And then we have this little strength value here. You can see the value is super low. It will stay low, but if you still play around with it, you will eventually see something that will start to happen. And there you go. So he's back having chicken pox or something like that. And now that we can start to have a visual of this, let's bring the scale back down a little bit until this gets to about a rough size we kind of expect there for kind of skin pores. This is still too big. Let's continue to bring this down a little bit. Something like that's pretty good. That's too small. Let's bring it back up. Yeah, it's pretty good. I kind of like that as a size. Let's start with that then. Okay. Now, this looks like milia or chicken skin right now, and it does not look like the skin pores or a porous surface, if you will. So let's take the strength value then, and let's simply invert it. You guys can see it's set to 0.0 minus 0.04 right now. Let's just invert that so that it goes within the positive. And this will, as you can see, inverse the direction of the displacement that is applied on the surface. And one thing that is also kind of cool to know, I won't tweak it in this particular case right now, but we will tweak it a bit later then. There is also this little curve here that is visible there. So depending on how you want these kind of holes to look like, if you want tighter holes, if you want holes that are a bit more open, if you want to change the curvature or the slope essentially of those holes that you have, you can play around with this, as you can see. So I can get large holes, I can get small holes, I can get large holes, small holes. I can make some weird stuff here if I want. Now, not particularly useful in this particular case, but you can actually make some really weird stuff using this particular curve here that it can actually be quite useful there. Let me just reset this. And perhaps the only thing I'm going to do in this case is just make the holes a bit larger there. So I'm just going to take here, I'm going to just click on the middle of the curve and I'm just going to pull it down a little bit. And it's just going to open up my skin pores a little bit more. All right, about like this or so. It's pretty good. Just keep it there. No need to be precise with this. Click OK. And now this is a display of your result right now. This is not yet baked within your surface there. So if you want to apply this within the surface, after you've created a layer, you have stored a morph target. Important to do these things before. I mean, it's within a layer, so you could always turn the layer off if you haven't stored your morph target yet, of course. But you certainly want to apply it within a layer for sure. Then you simply click Apply to Mesh. And that's it. And this gets applied to your mesh. Now these tiny little holes are now part of your geometry. Okay. So as I said, I wanted to have some directionality with this. And which means that these are not directional right now. But I want to start to build a bit of directionality over the surface. So what do? I use smooth directional. Why don't we go in there? Make sure my weighted smooth mode is set to 4. Or I use the smooth directional brush. I think there's actually a brush that's named like that. But, you know, this for me, this is too much for me. This interface needs a bit of cleanup, like all these brushes there. So I tend not to go in there. But I believe there is also a brush called Smooth Directional, which it's just this setting that's just turned on by default in there. Somewhere in there. I don't know. Maybe it's not in there anymore, but you could find it somewhere else in your brushes. Anyway, just play with this little slider here. And now let's directionally smooth these. And start to build a bit of directionality to our surface. Okay, so what I'm trying to do at this stage is just like sort of try to think about like how does the surface compress? In which direction would the surface compress? And I smooth in a direction that is perpendicular to that, so that I wind up having these little kind of stretched holes that start to follow essentially the direction, or rather the compression of the surface there. That is essentially the idea there, right? So, once more here, we also want to be relatively careful. We don't want to smooth out everything that we have preserved ahead of time when we have done our previous pass there on polishing the surface. Like if you overly smooth the surface now, you will get rid of a lot of that you had there previously once more. So I definitely don't want to go over the wrinkles, I want to keep myself to the inner portions, if you will, the different skin folds that I have. But you guys can see that already, this already gives a nice directional or yeah, just nice directionality to the surface there. That's quite pleasant to uh, look at already, right? So the best thing that you can do at this point is just get yourself a bunch of really high res references. Of course, if you're trying to sculpt a particular person, especially like an actor or an actress or something, it's unlikely that you'll be able to find like like that close up images of them, so you more or less have to kind of put together a bunch of other images of other people, kind of. But, you know, no one will tell you that your skin pores have been, skin pore references have been sourced from someone else, right? That's unlikely to happen there, so you're probably safe, even if you do that. It's good to know too that the smooth brush, the strength of the smoothing that you'll get also kind of depends on the topology, on the low res topology there and stuff. I probably don't want to have too many of these here. Actually, I'm kind of smoothing them now, but Jupiter will probably just remove those after the fact. He's going to morph targets, so probably not going to worry too much about the contour of the eyes there. But you guys can already kind of see the kind of orange peel effect it's kind of giving to my surface there. That's kind of interesting. So let's go ahead here. I'm always smoothing. The lips, they kind of compress like this, right? I mean, they compress in a lot of directions, which is also kind of part of what's kind of fun here, like because skin often compresses in multiple directions, like you don't have to be extra precise with this, like it doesn't really matter too much in which direction that you smooth. Often you'll still get some nice texture out of it that will probably be pretty cool to look at, so yeah, don't overthink it really. Just kind of go for what your intuition kind of tells you, and intuition's probably going to be good enough. But it still is pretty good to have a few few references. Yep, that's weird. Let's zoom out. I'll try not to move the camera too much, okay? Because I do have a tendency to do that. I'll try to do that a bit less, But yeah, you guys can see the kind of orange peel effect kind of getting right now. It's really, really cool. So I'm just smoothing, smooth, directional, trying to really control the direction of smooth so that I really get these kind of nice, very blurry streaks happening on the surface. And if you were trying to build this using alphas instead, you probably never see the end of it because of the directionality once more. It's not hard to use alphas to make skin pores like these, but the moment that you want your surface to have some nice varying sort of directionality to it. If you try doing this using an alpha where the directionality was built into the alpha directly there, it would be very, very long to do because you would have to always be constantly sort of putting it over the surface at a different angle and what have you there, like you would probably never see the end of it. That's why I like to use this trick, Like everything I'm showing you guys today, I consider is production worthy, What I mean by that is that you will get nice results. Maybe not always necessarily the most, the best, most absolute results that you could have, but you will get results that will be very, very good in a time usage that will be very controlled, because you also don't want to spend days and days and days making tertiary details when you are within a production environment. You do want to spend some time on it, of course, but you don't want to kill yourself doing it. And because you probably have other things to do. So yeah, here, smooth, smooth, smooth. Control the direction of your smooth while you're using your smooth directional brush, and you will have some very nice directionality to your surface. Okay, I'll keep doing this for a minute, guys. I want the day to be relatively more casual, sculpt along kind of thing. So you guys have access to this alpha too. You're free to just give this a try. If you want to ask a question, if you want to talk live, if you want to say something, go for it. Love to hear what you guys think. I have to say, if you have any questions, any comments, any complaints, sorts of things, feel free to grab the microphone at any point and start talking. So I'll just take a minute here. Sorry. I'll just take a minute here and build my nice directionality and blur this. Now, we won't keep this everywhere. We will, of course, get rid of it in different places. That's why we stored a morph target. Yeah, look at the kind of effect it gives to the surface. Super nice, right? Super cool. Love this. Love the effect. And, I don't have any references here. Please excuse that. But I encourage you guys to take a look at some very high-res images of people. Older people, of course, are often a really good reference because it gives you, the impact of age will make these details more obvious. Over the neck, of course, we will also do the same thing. We will also go in here, do the same thing, a little smooth directional, like this. Now, because of the density of the because of the density of the alpha there, or rather the density of the UVs, it makes these skin pores here a lot smaller, as you can see, because the UVs are denser there, and therefore the texture winds up being smaller. So I could do a separate surface noise here if I wanted to, so that the skin pores here wind up of a consistent size with the skin pores that I had going on the face. Could do that. I'm not going to do it here, but I could do that. I could do another surface noise here to better balance the size of my skin pores or of my directionality. But I'm not going to do it now.
Hello, Laura. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Lucky Death. Hey.
I just heads up for people who want to use the smoothing directional brush.
Yeah, go.
It's in the light box. It's in the
Oh, yeah,
light
yeah.
box.
Cool. Yeah,
You
that's
can
great.
find it. You can put on your brush preset if you want. It's
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that's a great tip. If you guys open the live box in here, why don't you guide me so that we find it while we're here? So to in brushes, right?
it's in this smooth folder.
Smooth folder. Where's that? Where is there? There you go. You guys can find your smooth directional in there as well.
There's a lot of cool brushes there.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. Yeah, thanks. That's a good tip. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks to
Right. Here we want to smooth these in this direction. As we had some of that reference to crow's feet. Just like that. Okay. All right. So what happens after that then? I don't want to overly spend some time on this. There's a lot of details to talk about. But you guys get the idea, right? You wind up having that very nice subtle orange peel texture that is directional on the surface. So what happens after that? Okay, well, what happens after that is that we take our move brush. So for me, it's 8 now, it's shortcut. So what we do after that is that we take the move brush and we, or sorry, the morph brush, and we simply morph out the place where we probably wouldn't really want to have that directionality to begin with, you know, or those kind of skin pore-ish kind of details there. So first of all, let's of course get rid of it around the eye. You know, obviously don't want to keep that here. We'll have other details there. So we want to kill that over the eye. As you can see, because I stored my morph target, I can get rid of it here. There's too much happening on the nose too. Now, I don't actually hate having a bit of this bumpiness over the nose. So truth be told, I don't really want to morph it out as much as maybe smooth it. But in this case here, I will smooth it by doing like circles with my hand so that I start having this kind of, yeah, just more circular motion in there, just a bit more general, you know, because I kind of like the effect that it gives the surface, but I also don't want to have too much directionality to it. So I guess I'll more or less move a more or less round motion to my arm there. No, although here I should probably do these strokes like this actually in this direction. But yeah, so I do like to keep a bit of it. I don't necessarily want to kill all of it, but we'll still kind of tone this down around the nose because there's probably going to be too much here to begin with. Okay, and then we take our morph brush once more. Sorry, I have a shortcut for it, and yet I keep going to my brush menu to get it. Old habit sometimes die hard. So let me go ahead here and take my morph brush. And here, like I'll lower my morph intensity so that it's not like at its default 25, because at its default 25, it's actually quite high. And so I will lower my Z intensity here so that it's just slightly lower so that we can sort of tone down the volumes or tone down the details without completely removing them outright with just a brush stroke, And here, like, I'll just be here and I'll just be removing a lot of this here. So I'll be morphing back to the start point, if you see what I mean, for this particular surface here. So I'll just go ahead here and I'll just get rid of this here, As I said, I'll just give just a small amount of it, just a little bit of texture, but not too much there. Yeah, just so that there is something. And yeah, so we've pretty much removed everything that was around the eyes. We want to remove everything that's around the mouth, of course. We want to also get rid of that. Now, I'll go back and I'll fix something before I go further with this too far. The lips are overly sketchy here. I think I got overly ambitious with keeping some of that sketchiness in there, especially the top lip. So I kind of want to address that right now, actually, or just after I'm done with this directional pass. And yeah, so, I look at my references and I'm like, okay, cool. I want this little orange peel here, there. If there's places, by the way, that like maybe I feel as if I have overly smoothed it or something, I could always do it again. I could also, first of all, this is a layer. We could play with the intensity of the layer. I could apply a new pass with these kind of little pores, and I could smooth them again. Could even smooth them in a different direction, and I could combine these together. I can do all sorts of stuff with this. There's a whole lot of stuff that we can do, even just with this very basic pass that we have here, There's a whole lot that you can do with this. So you do that and you pretty much go all the way over your surface there. So I won't complete this just the interest of time, but perhaps I can show you guys what it looked like after I was done with this. Not that there was anything all that fancy with it. So if I turn this back on here and it's interesting. So this was essentially where I kind of ended up with my directional pass. So if you guys take a look at this here. And I've also kind of went back in there. So there's a few here that I've left over. I've got rid of everything that was around the eyes. I've got rid of everything that was around the mouth and turn off the poly paint. I kept just a little bit of it on the nose, Now, one thing that I did do essentially, and is that I first of all, I have kept it pretty much everywhere else around the face, around the head, even on the cranium, by the way. You guys can see there's a bit of this little orange peel effect here. Now, this is another one of those zones where you just, I don't know, you just smooth in different directions. You just randomly smooth the surface. It doesn't really matter too much, really. But I have essentially kept a lot of this detail over pretty much all the surface, Probably should have gotten rid of this over the ears. I don't think that really belongs there. But, I've more or less kept that pretty much everywhere, Other than that, because we have skin pores over pretty much our whole body. In fact, there's only 2 places on our body that doesn't have skin pores. I mean, on the external body, of course, we don't have some of these within. I don't think so, at least. But there's actually 2 places that we don't have. Do people know what those 2 places are? I want to see if someone knows. The places over our body where we do not have skin pores is the palm of our hands and the sole of our feet. Unless I got that wrong. But if I remember my research, that's what it says. Anyway. So yeah, okay. So the other thing I have done here, if I go back to my work in progress here. The other thing that I have done here, first of all, you can see that the size is a bit different. So this is the thing I did previously, and this is the one that we are doing right now. You can see that the size is a bit different. It largely doesn't matter too much, you know. You do want to make sure that you have a size that is somewhat consistent for the references that you have to, of course, but you know, it can change. It's fine. We don't need to be overly precise here. But the other thing that I've done here, in fact, is that I have actually gone back in there after I had smoothed it out and I had like built my nice directionality pretty much over the whole surface the way that I kind of liked it there. What I have done back afterwards that I have actually gone back in there. So I have turned my directional layer back on for recording's sake. And I've actually went back in there and I've turned back my surface noise back on. And then I've reapplied it over the surface second time, just to get a bit more, just to get some pores that are a bit deeper in places. And so let's actually do that now. Let me do that here. Okay. First of all, I'm happy with what I had previously in terms of surface. So let's delete our morph target and restore our morph target. Delete, store once more. And now let me go back in my noise edit mode here. And let's simply play with this curve again, because now these folds are getting a bit too large for me. So let me just close them a little bit. Maybe just use the default, really. And so as you guys can see, what's going to happen is that now, you know, these will look a bit more like skin pores, but they will be kind of nicely aligned with the very blurry streaks that are left over from our directional pass, you know. So that's kind of cool, you know, like we kind of want to take advantage of that before going too far with this. Could I close them down a little bit? You guys can see what kind of happens, you know. This is too small, but you guys can see the relationship between the streaks over the surface and the skin pores there. So actually, yeah, let me just use the default here, but maybe lower the strength of them a little bit. Oh yeah, take a look at that. Yeah, it's pretty good. Okay, I like that. I like that. Okay, let's keep that. Oh yeah, take a look at that. Oh yeah, look, it's all blending together super nicely there. Cool. Okay, so now let's apply that again. Apply the mesh. And once more, we will use our morph brush to control and remove some of these little cavities, I suppose, where we don't want to keep them. So I'm going to take my morph brush once more. And at some point, okay, you'll be tired of being like Okay, maybe I just want to keep these little dots here, maybe over this particular surface here. Maybe I don't want to have all these other pores showing up everywhere, maybe, right? So at some point, it actually becomes simpler, okay? Once you've stored a morph target, at some point, it becomes simpler to simply do the opposite. Instead of just hiding where you want to get rid of the morph, what about, or could we do the opposite then? Could we invert it so that we simply morph where we want the details to appear, which I often like as an approach. I often prefer as an approach. So let's do that in this case here. Let's go down to our morph target tab. Once again, I'll go through my default, through my menu for that, but I'll do it once since you guys know where to look for it. You go into morph target here and you simply do a switch. And when you do a switch, it will simply switch back and forth between the mesh that you currently have and the mesh that has been, or the version of the mesh that has been stored within the morph target. So I'll do a switch. And now all these little pores I have added have all disappeared. Let's use our morph brush and let's bring them back now. So now when I use my morph brush here, I am making the pores appear as opposed to make them disappear. So I can go in here and I can say, okay, like I really just want to have some of these extra pores in here, you know? Maybe a few of these here. These are too strong. I don't like them too much. Let me Control Z that. Yeah, just to get just a bit more sharpness in them, you know? But as you can see, they're blending quite nicely with that directionality pass I have built previously. Actually building, they're blending quite nicely with that, you know? So I kind of like that, you know? Maybe bring a bit of them back in here a little bit. Yeah. Go in here, zoom in, take your morph brush, say, okay, all this that's very blurry here, let's do a pass here, and you guys can see I'm bringing back a lot of these tiny little pores. You can look nice and sharp, blend them really nicely with our directional pass. So, yeah, I would do that here too. In the interest of time, I want to spend more time on this. But you guys get the idea, you know? Everywhere where it's just overly blurry now, I'll just go back in here and just morph it back a little bit to something more like this. So we get these nice directional streaks here. But we still have some somewhat sharp looking pores in there. Cool, okay. So that's all I'll say. So this is still within my directionality layer. Now, in certain cases, you know, like I actually really like this kind of effect here. I kind of almost wish that it was a bit, even like a bit stronger, like time to time, you know. I could also just duplicate this, of course. Before I do that, let's store a morph target once more. Let's delete our morph target, store morph target once more, duplicate the layer. Now you can see now these are even stronger. So if they weren't strong enough the first time around, I can just duplicate my layer here, go in record mode on my second layer, do a switch, and now take my morph brush and just bring back some of this here. Bring back some of this here that I kind of like to have even more directionality in different places to the surface here, just like that here. Oh yeah, that looks good. Yeah. And so on and so forth. Okay. Let's merge all these together. I have 2 layers here for directionality. I don't need that. Let's just do a merge down. Merge them together so that I have only 1 layer for my directional paths. Okay. All right. Let me delete this. Let me take this here and let me duplicate it and erase all the layers but the directionality, and let's continue from that. Fortunately, there's no like delete invisible, at least. I don't know of any function like that, unfortunately. Kind of sucks. So we have to more or less manually just click delete here. It's not too bad, right? Okay. Oh no! Control Z. Okay, here we go. So this is pretty much where we are then. We have finished our directionality pass. Now let's add some other details then. So, okay, let's continue playing with this little texture that we have, right? So, okay, what else could we add next? How about that chicken skin? How about we go for that chicken skin in the nose region then? Or rather in the neck region. Why don't we start to build a bit of that in there? Because that kind of looks pretty good. Have a bit of that in there. Okay, how we do that? Create a new layer, call it chicken skin. Let's go back into our noise. It's on record. It's fantastic. Once more, let me store a morph target before I do this. All the time. Delete, store, delete, store, delete, store. Let's go to our noise pass. Turn this back on. I'll get back this thing here. Let me just let me just reset this here. Let me reset my curve. Let's use, we'll go back in UVs. Let's turn on the noise plugin. This is turned on. We aren't using this right now. We'll use it later, but we won't use it now. So now I'm still using the same texture that I had there. Okay, so this is more or less where we were before. You know, this was just like this kind of thing, right? Okay, now let's do something else then. Let's inverse this so that as opposed for these holes to go in, let's bring these holes out. Just like that. Let's look at our neck zone. And let's go for something like this. Maybe I'd like, because these are going to be chicken skin bumps, maybe I could make the holes, or rather the bumps, I suppose, a bit larger there. Maybe I can make them just a bit larger like that. Click OK. See them here. I've stored my morph target, so that's great. Hide mesh. And there you go. Now let's inverse our morph. Let's switch our morph. There you go. Morph brush. Stop going through the B menu, Laura. Stop doing that. You gotta have a shortcut for it. Let's use our morph brush. And once more, let's say, I want to have some chicken skin. Actually, now to think about it, let me, because we're going to blur this again, actually. So to make sure that I don't blur the work that I've done previously in my directional paths, let me just hide the directional path so that this is back to its default state. So let me recreate this here, actually. Let's rename this chicken skin or keratosis pilaris if I want it to be or overly obscure this. Apply it. I may not have stored a morph target, which is fine. Since I haven't stored a morph target, I can hide the layer, delete morph target, store morph target, turn the layer back on in record mode. Switch my morph target. Use our morph brush and bring back our chicken skin where we want to have it. Now, of course, there's a bit of sketchiness that's left over here. I should have cleaned up there. I don't want the surface to be this sketchy, but you guys get the idea. I kind of really like where this head is going so far, guys. So I'm pretty sure I'll finish it. I'll show you guys the result in a few days. Once I have also myself had time to finish these tertiary details. So yeah, chicken skin. Look at that. Okay. And now we'll do the same thing essentially because this also starts to build a bit of directionality in these details if you start looking at references there. So this same thing applies here. Now, I'll be using a slightly different technique here. I will simply duplicate my layer that I have. I will hide the first copy of this layer. I will turn the second one in record mode. And I will use our smooth directional once more. To once again get my little stretchy chicken skin effect. My brush is probably a bit too big right now. I'm starting to kill the wrinkles there, and I don't like that. Let me take a smaller brush. It's fine if some places aren't completely directional. That's fine, Like essentially, we're just looking for a bit of a bit of randomness in there, a bit of organicity, Let's blur this here like that. Let's do that here like that. Let's do this here. Chicken skin. I can't eat chicken on a keto diet. That's great. Man, I'm hungry now. I ate during the break and I ate a lot, and suddenly my body's still like, feed me carbs. Like, no, I refuse. Okay, we've done our directional pass for our chicken skin. Now let's bring back this layer number 1 that was not directional. And let's once more play with the intensities until we get something that tastes pretty good. It looks like chicken and tastes like chicken. It may still not be chicken. because everything tastes like chicken. It's a bit too low. So I'll be, bring this, I don't know, maybe about 30%. So let me bring the directional chicken skin down a little bit. Not too much though. I kind of like it, to be honest, the way that it is. Let me bring this back down. It's back at 50% or so. Let me bring it down. About 33 or so. That should be pretty good. I could play around with these, of course. I could continuously just play with these values, of course. But I kind of like the kind of effect that it's giving me right now, I have these stretchy streaks, but that also kind of culminates in a sharper point. I kind of like that. Okay. I'm happy with that. Let's merge these down together. Chicken skin. There you go. Then we can bring back our pores. And now we have both chicken skin and pores over the surface. Ain't that nice? Cool. Okay. What's next? What is next? Let's talk about those milia then. Little milia around the eyes. There we go. All those little tiny bumps here, right? So once more, little milia. Once more, how can we do that? Well, why don't we create a new layer? You guys are getting the idea, right, of where we're going with this? Let's play around with this. Move up to our zone. The eyes. Let me reset the curve. Go back to its default state. Bring this back down. Alpha scale too big. Scale it down somewhere about like that. Let me see if I get something I like more by playing around with this. No, default's fine. The intensity is too high, but I can also lower that later if it's too strong. But nah, screw it. Let's just lower it now. I have my new layer. Apply a mesh. Inverse. Did I start move target? I'm not sure I did. So let me turn the layer record off, store morph target, turn the layer on. Back in record mode. Do a switch. Take my morph brush, lower the intensity, and just gradually bring some of this back in here. Not too much, just a little bit. Maybe they're overly sharp right now. Could have maybe played around with the curve a bit more, but you guys know how to do it at this point. You guys would know how to do that at this point. Yeah, okay. Turn off the poly paint. Probably should have gotten rid of that completely from the beginning. Now it's too late. Yeah, you guys can see I got a bit of skin pores here. Why don't I fix that now? Okay, so let me turn off the directionality layer that I have. Store morph target. Turn the layer back on record mode. Take my morph brush, go in here, get rid of that. A bit here too is a bit too much of that here. Let me see here. I'm really tired of having this poly paint, fortunately. Let me just fix that here. Let me fix that. Okay, should be gone. Yeah, as long as I don't do Control Z, I'll be fine. Okay, so we have our little milia, our little bumps here. As I said, maybe they're just a little too sharp. I could blur them again. I could do that. I could do that kind of trick again, just to blur them out or build a bit of directionality in there. But I'm kind of happy with these. Okay, so let's keep them like that. Let's keep our milia like this. You could actually build these elsewhere too. Like since I have the layer here, or I kind of killed the morph target. Actually, now that I think about it, so I could store it again, right? But you don't have to have these only around the eyes. I could also have some of these a bit elsewhere too, if I wanted to. I could at this stage. Another thing I could do at this stage too is say, okay, like we've seen that some people had some bigger ones around this particular zone here, right? Some people had some bigger ones there, so I could definitely do that here too at the same time, of course. I could play around with this here. Get something more like kind of like this here, maybe play around the curve, get something a bit more diffuse like that, Ooh, look at this. They're kind of starting to look like they're sort of caving in the middle a little bit. That's kind of interesting. I could do something like that, of course, maybe lower the strength of this. Maybe it's a bit too strong. Yeah, I could do something like this, right? Apply the mesh, inverse, our morph target. Oh yeah, I definitely forgot to store our morph target. I always forget that. At some point, it's like a reflex. I need a script that like does all of these things. I think that's kind of what I need. I think that would actually help me out. Delete morph target, store morph target, apply to mesh. Kind of undid the noise changes I did though. That's not good. I want this to be a 0. It's this here I want to play with. Now, of course, at some point you may also need different alpha slightly, I'm trying to do the like squeeze as much as I can out of this one, but of course at some point it's like, well, maybe you just need an alpha. It's a bit different too, So if the holes are a bit bigger or something, so that you wind up having these things to be a bit bigger, of course. Of course that is the case. You can make a whole lot of variations with these as much as you want. Okay, let me just again for safety's sake delete store morph target, apply to mesh. I definitely need a script that does all of these things. It wouldn't even be hard to do. Switch. Morph brush. And let's just bring it back here a little bit. Lower intensity a little bit. And just say, yeah, just a few bumps here. Something like that, right? Some people have that, some of these bumps. I can certainly go over my surface and just randomly to be like, yeah, I actually kind of want to have just a bit of random bumps here, a little bit like that. I could definitely start to add a bit of that left and right. I'm not doing it now, but while my morph target is while this is stored, This is very valid, you know. I can definitely do something like that. Just go different random places over my surface. Just add a bit of these bumps in there just to have something more organic left and right, you know. But for the most part, I think this is fine for now. Happy with this. Okay. Okay. What's next then after this? Let's add some comedones, guys. Let's add some black heads and some white heads to this. How if we do that? Let's add a few of that. Okay. So this is, let me call them, this is Milia. Create a new layer. I'll do it now so I don't forget it. Delete morph target, store morph target. Go back in our noise. Let's create some tiny little pores that we'll place over the nose, especially for the nose, but elsewhere too. Let's create some tiny little pores with this. So let's take our alpha, let's inverse it so that it goes within, it goes inward. Just like that. Let's scale this down. And now let me close the holes. Let me close the pores a little bit more in this direction, just like that, something like that, right? Create some tiny, tiny little pores like these. Could like play around with this curve too a little bit if I want to create something a bit different looking. But for now, let's just close the pores here a little bit like that. Just like that. Let's bring our intensity down too high. Something like that or so, right? Maybe it's a bit too strong, but we can knock that back with our morph brush or layer intensity if we want. If this winds up being too strong. Yeah, let's give that a try. Let's see what happens when I apply the mesh. And what do we have? What do we have? Oh, that's not bad, right? That's kind of interesting. I like that. Tiny little pores that don't have much of an elevation to them. It's just tiny little holes for the surface. Kind of like having those everywhere. Of course, I would get rid of these over the mouth too. I would, of course, do that. But I kind of like the effect that it creates left and right. They may be overly deep right now. So could, of course, lower our brush our layer intensity if we need to make a gradual adjustment like that. But okay, let's just keep these, you know. Let's just keep these for now. So I guess these are more like, these are more blackheads, I guess, or something else. Oh, okay. Is there anything else we can do with this particular alpha before we move on to something else? Let's see. Let's see what else we could do. What if this was back at being inverted, coming out? What if I play with this curve again? Maybe something like that. Is there something interesting to do with this? Maybe. Maybe there is. Let me lower this intensity a little bit. Play with the scale too. Yeah, see, I could actually create a bunch of bumps with this. A bunch of random bumps over the surface like these. Now, of course, just like that right now, it kind of looks a bit out of place, but once it starts to blend with everything else we have, probably going to look pretty cool, actually. So I kind of like that, you know? And then one thing I like to do too, actually, from time to time, see, like right now, okay, so I have these bumps here right now. Now, if I was to apply them, they would be probably, let me zoom out so we can see this better. if I was to apply them right now, it would probably be overly the bumps would be overly sharp in relation to everything else, you know. Now, yes, if I add details on top, it's probably going to look a lot nicer there. But there is also something that I kind of like to do, which is I like to apply things on a subdivision that is lower than the highest subdivision level, and the result that it creates that it simply diffuses the information a lot more over the surface. So once more, let me just delete store my morph target for safety's sake. Let me go down to down a few subdivision levels. Okay, right now we're at I don't know, about 700,000 polygons or so. Let me apply this to the surface then. And see, like now when I go back up to my highest subdivision level, now these will simply have been diffused a lot more over the surface. Now in this particular case, maybe would have wanted to do it even lower than that. So let me even lower it at like 3,200 or so. Apply to mesh. Now you guys can see every time it's just diffusing it more and more over the surface. And see now when I go back up to my highest subdivision level, now these are very diffuse bumps that are left over the surface. If I turn this layer off, you can see that it's practically hard to perceive where they are, you know, because they're so diffuse. But they do contribute to breaking up the surface in a way that is very interesting. Okay, so let's keep that. Let's keep the whole layer as it is, and the rest of this will simply blend with the rest of what we have. Okay. All right, so what is this here? So this was our blackheads, I believe, right? Our sort of pores over the... Right here, okay, so blackheads. Let's call it that. Let's call these just, I don't know, just bumps, I guess. I don't have much of another name for it. All right. So where are we in our original layer stack then? We take a look at that. Where were we now with this? We have our directionality, that's done. Chicken skin around the neck. Chicken skin here, that's done. Talked about that. Our milia around the eyes. Little tiny bumps, we talked about that. Our little comedones, or blackheads, if you will. Kind of the same thing here. If I zoom in on the nose and you guys take a look at that. You can see I've, like, some of these I've also made them raised, you know, because that kind of happens too, but kind of start to get these a bit everywhere around the face. That's pretty cool. All right, and then we start to get to this little pores here. So these actual skin pores. Okay, I'll keep that for later. I want to go through a few different noise passes before we talk about that. We will talk about creating these pores specifically once we get there. Okay, let me go through and add a few noise passes to our to where we were with this here. Where we were left here with this. So we have created here all of our layer stacks so far. All right. Now let's add 2 general noise passes to the whole surface. Again, just to contribute to breaking it up a little bit there. Okay, first of all, let's add a general Voronoi pass over the whole surface. So to do that, let's create a new layer. Let's call it generic Voronoi. Let's go to our surface plugin, turn that on, surface noise, call it a plugin. Probably is a plugin, but It's not called like that here. Okay. We don't need the alpha anymore. We can turn that off. Hey, that's kind of interesting. It's kind of interesting what's kind of left over. Anyway, let's not worry about that for now. Yeah, it's kind of interesting, the kind of texture. Kind of wonder if there's something to be done with that. Anyway, let's turn on 3D here so that instead of using the UVs, we will now use the 3D volume or like a 3D projection. It's actually not a projection. It's actual real 3D 3D mapping because these are noises that we will be using. So it's even smarter than just a like a triplanar projection, if you will. Let's go back to 3D here. Let's turn on noise plugin. All right, you guys can already see I have my Voronoi here that's kind of showing up here. And now when I turn this on here and I go to my edit, oh, no, it's not there anymore. There it is. I click on edit, it will open this nice little menu here. This little noisemaker thing that's very very weird for some reason. You can't see it kind of has a bit of a life of its own there. Hey Ma, no hands. Let's do that again. See? Woohoo! It just keeps on going. Anyway, okay. No idea why. All right, so here I have turned on. You guys can see here all the different basic noises you can use. I mean, these aren't so basic, but these are all the different noises you can use within ZBrush. That comes with ZBrush directly. You have access to a whole bunch of these within Substance Designer too, so I kind of really like that. You know, like when you're learning this, you're actually kind of also learning Substance Designer at the same time. So I really like that. But yeah, okay, so we want our... is the class still live? Jose is asking, yes. Can you guys hear me? You guys can hear me, right? We're still live? We're still there, right?
Yes, everything is fine.
Okay. Whew.
Hi.
I was kind of scared there for just for a second. Is it live? It's like, oh wait, I've been speaking to myself for the past 3 hours or so. We have about an hour left to go, I think. Yeah, it's a long one, but this is a lot of stuff I want to go through, and I hope this is interesting at least. So, okay. Voronoi. So a whole bunch of different noises we can use here. You guys can also see we have our fractal Brownian motion right here. We'll use that very soon. For now, let's turn on Voronoi here. And I sometimes play around with these settings here. Depending on the kind of settings that you set here, you'll have a different look to your Voronoi, but truth be told, the basic settings do work great. So let's just click OK. No need to change anything else in there. Yeah, you guys can see the kind of effect it's already kind of giving my skin right now, you know? There's already something interesting to do with this, especially if we were to apply this on a lower subdivision level. This could actually create some interesting bumps there. But still, let me just reset the curve here and let's go back to our default state here. So our Voronoi path here, you guys can see if I play with strength here, you can see the kind of cell-like effect it's going to give to my surface there. So let's take a very small Voronoi then. Let's scale this down. Not too small, but definitely not as big as what we had there. Let's reduce our intensity. Yeah, just like that, right? See the kind of like effect it gives to the surface? It's really, really cool. I really love it. Yeah, we could even start with that. Let me see if I can maybe playing around the size of it is interesting. I often play with the curve too, okay? I often like to do this here because as you can see, when I play with the curve, I can get this here, which is more like a crackly skin kind of look, that's kind of interesting. For now, let's just reset that. Uh, Not too strong, but let's apply that on a layer so we can blend it better. If it's too strong, and yeah, maybe just a bit of this here. Maybe just tweaking the curve here a little bit more. Maybe a little bit too big. Let me scale this down. Okay. That should be a good starting point. Let's see what it looks like. Let's see what this looks like. Also looks like styrofoam a little bit. All right. Okay. Not entirely happy with this right now. But let's just apply it. Let's see what it looks like. Okay. There's some places that it works really well right now. I think it may be too big overall. Let me just scale down a little bit more. So we're at 0.04. Let me try 0.03 maybe. See what that looks like. Okay, that's probably better. Okay, let's go for that for now. Too strong too. We'll just lower the intensity of the layer here. So delete more targets, store more target, apply to mesh. And let's lower the intensity of this so that it blends better with what we have and we're not completely killing everything else that was already there to begin with. You see, like as you're building all these different layer passes, all these detailed passes on different layers, eventually what you will want is to really play with the intensity of each of the layers that you have so that they all kind of so that like these are all ingredients, and eventually you want to essentially make a sauce that tastes really good by mixing the ingredients to the degree that they need to. So it's kind of normal when you kind of add a detailed pass. Like here we have added our generic Voronoi. You guys can see the kind of difference that it makes here. Kind of like there's like places that it breaks up the surface really, really well. I really like the effect that it's kind of giving me overall. But it's possible that then you have to go back in there, maybe take your directional pass, maybe you have to boost it a little bit, these sorts of things, Like it's kind of normal that you have to play around these different passes that you have and really just balance them so that you start to get so that one layer doesn't suddenly overpower everything else that you have. You kind of have to do that. You have to balance them out. But for now, I think that's I kind of like the effect that's here. Now I'm not gonna take the time to go in here with the morph brush and start to morph out parts of my Voronoi pass, but sometimes it's worth to do it, because or rather there is also a point where it's good to just go in here with your morph brush and just sort of randomly just start putting down splotches over the surface just to break up the Voronoi, because now the Voronoi is applied evenly everywhere, which doesn't look too bad, but sometimes it starts to make it look a little too CG too. So sometimes it's good to go in there. If I turn my Voronoi back off, store a morph target, turn it back on, go with a morph brush, and just start to randomly sort of erase part of it just so that it creates something that's a bit more organic. But I think that's pretty good. now I think that's totally fine. Starting to feel like these pores are starting to become a little too hard to see there, but we will make them stronger because we will be making our own, like, sort of more high-res, high-quality pore in just a minute. And then the second pass maybe that I can do while I'm here is to go back in here and then perhaps within my noise pass to now apply my fractal Brownian motion pass. So let's go back into our edit. Let's go back in here. Let's look at it go. Woohoo! It's just kind of ain't that crazy. Okay. Don't know why it's doing that. Where is it? Okay. Let me just bring this down like that. All right. Fractal Brownian motion. Nothing all that simple, all that special there. I won't tweak the settings again. I'll just play with the scale, the curve till I get something that I like, you know. And that's also going to help to just break up the surface a little bit there. Let's play around with our curve. Let's see. Oh yeah, that's kind of cool in that direction. This direction here kind of makes it more like little dents or something like that. Could probably make some acne scars with this or something else. Could make some interesting stuff with that, I guess. Maybe that's a little too much in that direction. Just like that. Let's just lower the strength a little bit. Just like that, right? Just to break up the surface a little bit. See the kind of noise it's kind of adding there. If I turn it off, this is overly smooth. But if I just apply just a little bit, just a little touch of it, it really makes the surface look a lot more organic there. So that's kind of cool. I kind of like that. Okay. And let's call this FBM. This one too, maybe I can apply it at a lower subdivision level. Maybe not on my highest one. Let me drop down to 700,000 and apply it there because I want to get some general noise, but I don't want that noise to be overly sharp and defined. Sorry, let me zoom in. Sometimes it zooms in like this and it's not all that great. Let's do it at about this resolution here. Apply to mesh. Let's go back up our subdivisions to the highest level. And now we have a bit more texture that has been added there because of this fractal Brownian motion pass. This is off. This is on. Off. On, right? It's very like you wouldn't really catch that if you haven't really sort of properly thought through what this kind of creates on the surface. But the moment that it's there, it's like, oh yeah, that kind of really helps to really sort of break it up and make the surface read a lot more organic, you know? So that's kind of cool. Kind of like that. Maybe one more time, turn it off, turn it back on, you know, see how nice of a texture it sort of adds here. Cool. Okay. There is more to say about these passes, especially the Voronoi pass. Screw it. Let's just do it now. We'll do the skin pour afterward. I want to talk more about the Voronoi pass. Because like so far we've just added a generic Voronoi pass for the whole surface, right? And you know, it works pretty well as a way to just like as a general pass, just to break it up, you know? But they're still the surface there's a bit of directionality that we're starting to lose more and more, I feel like. And I find that the Voronoi noise is a great way to build some really nice directionality, some really nice fine wrinkles very, very easily, very, very nicely over the surface. So let's do something like that then. let's put another layer in record mode, and here we'll start calling this directional Voronoi. Okay, let's go back to our noise. Now take a look at this, guys. You're gonna love this. All right, let's go back to our edit. Let's take this again. Let's just give it another swing just for good luck's sake. Look, Ma, no hands. It just keeps on going. Oh, that's crazy. Okay. I don't think that's a problem with ZBrush, by the way. I think it's a problem with my computer because it's not the only thing that does that. But I don't know what does that. That's the crazy part. I don't know if you guys have similar problem on your side. Okay. Let's turn off this fractal brown motion. Let's go back to our Voronoi pass. Let's turn that back on. Let's click OK. All right, take a look at this, guys. You're gonna love this. You're gonna love this. Oh, so good. Okay, let's play around with this here. Let's make this a lot stronger, okay? Now, see, the great thing about Voronoi passes like these is that we can play with the scale, actually, and we can play with the rotation of it. Now, if we just use these, this default, by the way, I'm just reading the chat right now. Jose is saying, out of curiosity, do all characters normally get this level of detail, or do you find only this much detail for hero characters? Well, truth be told, like, if you go through this kind of approach, you could get through a character, a face easily, create tertiary details for a face in like within a day, you know? So there's not a lot of characters that are unimportant enough that you wouldn't spend this time on it. That you wouldn't spend like one day doing it. So at that point, you may as well do it to this degree of detail, really. But you know, like if you're in a production environment for video games, there is a chance too that you'll be reusing some tertiary detail maps across different characters, just to save on the memory and have a better resolution. And so there's a lot of main characters that you probably wouldn't spend time to create these details because you probably wouldn't see them in the end because that would be replaced with a generic tertiary detail map. But if it's an especially important character, yes, you would definitely spend this time on it. And if you're doing it like a portfolio piece or something else, yeah, it's definitely worth it. So in general, I would tell you yes more than no, essentially. Okay. Which doesn't mean that people go crazy with these different noise passes the way that I do, though. Like that's something else entirely. I'm not showing you that like something that everyone does. You know, like everyone's got their own recipes and their own approaches, and this is simply my own approach to creating these things. All right, take a look at this, guys. We can actually scale Voronoi or any noise down on different along different axes if we want to, and that's super cool. Okay, because look at what's going to happen here. If I take this here, okay, and I take these little scale values, okay, and I say I want to squash this noise on the x-axis, look at what's going to happen. I take the scale value, and now I can do something like this. Now I can get a directional Voronoi over the surface. That's super, super cool. And now I can play around with my curve, maybe get something a bit more like this. So now I can start to build. Let me bring this little point here up so that there's a bit less, just to sort of even out these kind of cavities that I'm kind of getting here. A bit too strong to begin with, something like that. Or maybe actually lower this, go the other way instead. Lower this so that these pits aren't as deep as they were. All right, this is super cool. You can make so much good stuff with this. And now what's even cool with this is that not only can you scale it on one axis, but you can also rotate it. You can also rotate this. Let me rotate this one here, maybe. Yeah, take a look at this, right? I can say, yeah, I like this Voronoi pass, but maybe I want to have it at a slightly different angle. Why don't I do something like that? Why don't I rotate this around? And so what can you do with that? A whole bunch of stuff, really. A whole bunch of stuff. I could maybe put my orientation like this. And you guys can see the kind of effect that it's starting to create on the lips there. It's super cool. Super, super cool. You click OK. So I'm on my directional Voronoi pass. Once more, let me delete morph target, store morph target, apply to mesh. Do a switch. And now with my morph brush, I will bring back the Voronoi pass. In all the places that I want to have wrinkles that more or less go at that angle that I had there. So where do we want to have wrinkles like that? Well, we want to have a few of those around here, of course, right? It's kind of the look that lips were starting to have that we saw before. It's kind of cellular sort of Voronoi-ish pass. And I can even bring some of this back here a little bit to start to texture the upper lip there a little bit here, right? Can do that here. Let me try here on this corner here, the lower lip. Oh yeah, that's kind of cool. Kind of like that too. Let's make that here too. What about here? Maybe not there. What about here? No, not there. Maybe on this one here. That could be really cool here. Oh yeah, just a little bit of that, right? Could even just bring my cursor down a little bit. Just make sure that I get just a little bit of this, you know. It's like a wrinkle that I'm sort of getting for free there. Where else could I have that? Maybe a bit here, you know, just a little bit of it. Just bringing it back a little bit. Not too strong. Maybe on the nasolabial fold. How's that? Oh yeah, take a look at that. So good. Oh yeah, here too especially, right? Oh yeah, that's nice. What about the eyes? What does this directional Voronoi pass look around the eyes? Oh, that's not uninteresting. Of course, we'd have to compare that with references. Yeah, maybe not here. Maybe not there. Maybe that's too much. Let me control Z that. What about, let me just hunt for somewhere else that this could be interesting to keep. See if anything picks up my attention. Nah, it's fine. Let's just keep it. Let's just keep it like that for now. Okay. So we start to get all these nice little cavities and wrinkles here for free. Slightly too strong here. Let me just knock that back a little bit. Let me hide this particular layer, restore my morph target, turn the layer back on, go back in record mode, and just blend this here just a little bit back. Just bring it back like that, just a little touch. Just a little touch like that. Pretty cool. Okay. Let's go back in our noise. And now, you know what? Let's do the other side. So right now I have an angle of minus 31. Let's put this at 31. There you go. Different direction. Opposite direction, rather. Same thing. Delete morph target, store morph target. Apply the mesh. Switch it. Morph brush. Bring this back a little bit. Especially around the lips here, especially. That was kind of cool. Kind of effect starting to create here. Really like that. Bit here too, I think. And maybe a bit here, right? Want to make it somewhat symmetrical. Oh, sorry, that's weird. Okay, I like this. Let's go back to our noise. Reset angle. Let's reset scale. Let's squash it down on the Y instead. Squish it down on the Y. Let's get this like that. Delete morph target, store morph target. Apply to mesh. Switch it. Take the morph brush. Bring back some of that in here. It's very subtle. Let me zoom in there. See what's going on. Just a little bit of that in there. Just to break up the skin a little bit more. On the lips too? Yeah, on the lips too. We want to have a bit of that. Let's bring some of that in here. Let's bring some of that good stuff in there. Yeah, see, like all of these streaks here, these are left over from the sculpting process. I should have smoothed that out a bit more. I left a bit too much information back on the surface. It's not too late, yeah. I could just hide all of this and fix that, of course. It's not too late. Kind of tempted to maybe do that too. And I'm also getting a bunch of other noises here that other passes that I don't really like. You know, I got a bunch of skin pores in here. Maybe I would also want to kill maybe the fractal Brownian motion over that. You know, I would want to kill essentially at this point the different passes that are starting to make it like overly noisy. But let me just go back here and just hide all of this first of all. Let me just hide all of this first of all. And now let me just take my clay tubes, Control, Shift, click on this to isolate the upper lip. Let me just fix all of this because there's too much information in here. It's starting to become a little too ugly for me. A little too ugly. Just flatten this out here. It's too much left over. Yeah, I thought these were a good idea, the little streaks I have added, but they're a little too sharp. They're too sketchy to work as well. Even these, I should probably just get rid of these. Just let the noise do its magic, really, because that's really what we want. So yeah, I really should get rid of all of this. If you're in a hurry, you could just move it. Okay, that should be good enough. Actually, let me just do this here. Okay, that should be good enough. I think that's good enough. Okay. Let's turn all these back on. Now, of course, as I said, I definitely don't want to have skin pores here, of course. I could fix that too, delete morph target, store morph target, turn recording back on, take my morph brush, get rid of all of these. You guys get the idea. Yeah. This is overly ambitious. So directional Voronoi, there's a lot that you can do with that. There's a lot of details that you can do. Like I privilege doing that often to like sculpting wrinkles. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but like for me, you can get some really nice details really quickly with this. Some really organic looking surface that probably would be pretty hard to do if you tried to sculpt all these tiny little wrinkles in there. Not impossible, but you guys can see that we can get a lot of like really nice surface definition really easily by just playing around with this here. And yeah, like I like to like do that. I'll just go into here, my surface noise. I'll go in here and I'll just like start to like rotate this around to, like I will take this here. I'll be like, okay, what happens if I rotate this, I don't know, around maybe the x-axis here, right? You can see how it's kind of rotating around, I can kind of aim it so that maybe like it kind of creates these nice, oops, sorry, let me frame this. I can sort of create it so that these little things that kind of also wrap around the shape like this, that's really cool here. I could scale this down a little bit more. Maybe even something like that, Let's create a new layer for this. And then we'll move on after this one. And we'll do the rest of the face like that. So store morph target, cool. Let's apply to mesh. It's gonna be too strong. Let me just lower the intensity a little bit. Apply to mesh. There you go. Switch it. Yeah. Come on, Laura. Use your shortcuts. Go back in here and again, just bring some of this back here a little bit, right? So we can really sculpt some really nice. Can make this wrinkle look a lot nicer, a lot more organic like that. Yeah, look at it. All this nice organicity we're getting out of this like that. Super nice, right? Super cool. Super cool. At least I think it's cool. I don't know what you guys think of this. Maybe you think this is all garbage and I should just stick to like using alphas and stuff, but I think it's pretty cool. Yeah, I can also like while I'm here, like I like to also do this here. Like I'll take my morph brush and I'll just go like randomly over the surface in like different places like these without putting too much pressure, just to get my noise to show up a little bit, right? Sorry for that. Just to get the noise to show up a little bit in different places without being overly strong, and see how it also gives us some of these nice high frequency wrinkles that have this nice directionality over the surface in different places, you know? Super cool. What else? What if I applied it here? What would it look like? Kind of looking at the directionality. No, it's not good here. That doesn't actually work. Maybe the forehead. The forehead's super good too to like do that. Oh yeah, take a look at that. Can get all that for free while we're here. You know, while this is in memory, I may as well just go ahead here and just do a bit of that here. Just bring some of that in there. You know, get some nice directionality, nice directional wrinkles going on the forehead just for free while I'm here. Can have them just coming down the forehead like this. Super cool. Super cool. And yeah, so I would continuously like this, just build like a bunch of Voronoi passes like these, a bunch of directional Voronoi passes like these, you know, and just continuously just you know, work on my wrinkles, especially for the wrinkles. Like you really want to get some nice organic sort of breakup to all these wrinkles that you have, like left and right and stuff, you know. Okay. Enough of that. Enough of that. Okay. What's next? What is next? I'll talk about skin pores. I have to switch to a different tool and stuff, so I'm kind of saving it for later. Maybe we'll even end with that. I'm not sure. Let me go through the rest of what needs to be said here. So next, what I would have is, okay, so there are, of course, wrinkles that you'll probably want to manually sculpt, you know? There are wrinkles that you'll want to manually sort of tweak yourself without necessarily using brush or using these procedural passes, because the problem with these procedural passes is that although they are nice, they don't necessarily give you the exact detail that you want in a specific location, right? You still got to go in there and you still got to start to like manually sculpt some details from like time to time. You know, now that I think about it, I'm not sure I kind of like this here from my directional Voronoi pass, but I kind of like this side here a bit more. But regardless, you know, I won't go back in there and just erase that for now. Why do I have 2 layers here, by the way? Oh, that was for the chin, right? Yeah, that was for the chin. Let's merge these two together. Okay, so let's call these wrinkles. So let's get back to finally starting to talk about sculpting wrinkles, right? So essentially, as I said, Damp Standard 2, super great brush to use. There's really nothing else to say about it. It's just take it and do it, really. Okay. Like we said before, do not do straight lines when you sculpt wrinkles, right? Don't just take this and do that, right? That looks more like a scar than like anything else. So don't simply do that here. When you're sculpting wrinkles, okay, first of all, you probably want to be a lot more gentle, of course, on your pen pressure. But second of all, again, you have to break it up. You have to take time to break it up. So if you suffer from arthritis or Parkinson's or like something, you will be great at sculpting folds, or rather sculpting wrinkles, because your hand will continuously shake a little bit as you're sculpting these. And that's fantastic. And that's what you want to do. You want to shake your hand. You want to vary the pen pressure. You want to make it so that your wrinkles are very uneven. So let's start to sculpt a bit of wrinkles on this, right? So I don't want to do this. What I want to do is to do something more like this here. I want to maybe even just go like a few times like over my surface like this. And even then I'm like, yeah, this one I'm not that happy with. Let me lower the intensity. I think it's a little too strong for my own taste right now. Yeah, let's do another one here. See, so I'm looking for that breakup here. For that breakup in shape as I sculpt my wrinkles. And of course, there are places here where I would probably go in there and start to remove some of the noise passes I've added. That's weird. Sorry for that. Let's bring that back. There are some places in here I would probably go back and start to remove some of this noise, But that's like a process. You just figure out which noise it is that you don't like, and you turn the layer off, store morph target, go in record mode, and just get rid of it, So yeah, like as I'm adding these wrinkles, I want to make sure that I'm kind of doing them in a very organic way, so they kind of blend in with the rest of what's already there. So you have these kind of wrinkles here and kind of build up here a little bit. Forehead too. We have a pretty good base that's left over from the. Let me just do something here. Let me go to material. Let me go to modifiers and put my anisotropic diffuse here to 0.1. Yeah, that's pretty good. Let me boost my intensity of light to 1 here. Start to see my skin a little. My surface a little bit more. What I also like to do actually sometimes just to get rid of the shadows here, which by default I have this here. I just put it to 0 really, so I can see my surface a bit better there. You can say I can start to see the details a bit better there, but by default that is in. Believe that's in preferences. Maybe it's in rendering. I think it's in rendering. Let me see. Actually, if you, I think if you control click something, it's going to bring you to the interface directly. Let me just do that here. So I think it's control click. Control. Does that work? Control shift maybe? No, definitely not. Yeah. Anyone knows can let me know. I know there's like something that you can do. You click on something and it brings you to the interface, but I don't know how you click on it.
I think it's you press Alt and click.
Oh, there you go. Awesome. Thanks. That's a great tip. Yeah. So here, OBJ shadow, right? So we have somewhere in there. Preview shadows, I think, right? Yeah, this here. Yeah, see? Like sometimes it's a little too strong, depending on the camera angle. Now it looks pretty good, but sometimes it's a bit too strong. It's good to just knock that back a little bit so that you see your surface a bit better there. Should have done that from the beginning, really. Yeah, so, here too, just go in here with your dam standard here and just go in here and just start to make these a bit deeper there. Oh, sorry for that. Could actually lock this so that it stops to dance around like that. I should use that more when I'm streaming. It's a little lock here. Okay, so now it's not actually going to move anymore. Okay, yeah. So yeah. See, you just go in here and just like deepen these, and you make sure that you vary your brush intensity, your brush size, or rather your how you kind of go over the surface. You don't do this in straight lines. You just slowly go over the surface like that. I want to have a few wrinkles here, kind of going up like this. Something like that here. Yeah, this is too straight, but I'll just leave it for now, just in the interest of time. And I mean, that's kind of it. That's how you sculpt wrinkles. Could use other brushes and stuff, but for like usually for me, I just need these to place very bespoke wrinkles in places where the noise passes just couldn't really pick up because it was needed something a bit too specific in a particular zone. So it's rare that I necessarily need more brushes in these. I find that this does a wonderful job most of the time. I haven't talked about the neck so far. I haven't talked about this too much. We still have our chicken skin here. Now that I look at it, kind of would maybe want to boost that a little bit. Starting to disappear there a little bit too much. Maybe we can take this and put it to 2 or something. So 0.5, see what it looks like. Yeah, it's already a lot better, right? Maybe 2. Get more of that chicken skin effect in there. go in here, start to add more of these wrinkles here using our damp standard 2. And so on and so forth. Okay. This class is getting pretty long. I guess it's probably good for now. Maybe 2 different things. So first, let's talk about the skin pores, and then maybe just one little last thing. And I think it's going to be it. I think it's pretty good. Yeah. So essentially, in a way, I've more or less just scratched the thing that the Surface Maker can do. I invite you guys to explore it more. There is a lot that you can do with all these different noise passes that you have. Just click on, just explore different noise passes, apply them on your mesh, play with the curve, see the kind of effect that it creates, see if you like the kind of effect. And there's probably a lot of cases where it'll do something that you kind of like, that maybe you had not anticipated. Maybe you'll get some happy accidents here and there that you're quite happy with, That's more or less how I learned everything, really. I just screw around with stuff, and when it gives me a result that I like, then I'm quite happy. Okay. Let me reset my brushes here. And of course, there is a moment where if you start to sculpt a lot of wrinkles, you will probably at some point want to go back in here with your standard brush. Let me name this here. So this would be wrinkle elevation. Wrinkle elevation. Create that in just a minute. And then this one here was wrinkles. Right, this was my wrinkle pass. Yes, it was. I don't want to turn on record. Just want to name it essentially. So wrinkle. Okay. Now, yeah. So at some point you'll want to take the standard brush, probably. Bring your intensity down. Bring your lazy step value down too. Because by default that's just too high, by the way. Which is in when you go to stroke lazy mouse, bring this value here, lazy step to 0.1. Because the default 0.25 is too high. I don't like it. And then, here you just go back for lower intensity. And you start to, maybe this is still too strong. Let me lower this a little bit. And then you kind of start to maybe also add a bit of elevation in different places between some of these wrinkles that you have sculpted, you don't want to do that everywhere, but there are places where I kind of want this to stick out a little bit more like that, or something like that, So it's good to sometimes go back in there and start to just elevate a little bit more separation, or rather the skin folds between the different wrinkles you have created. If there is compression, of course, if that part of the skin isn't compressing, then you obviously don't want to do that. But you're free to go back in here, is my point, and continue to improve the wrinkles that you have. It's not just what was given to you by the sculpting process. You're definitely free to obviously go back in here, continue to add stuff. Now, of course, you don't want to use the clay brushes anymore, because you're just going to kill all the details that you have added over your surface. But that's why you go back in here with the standard brush, because the standard brush will preserve the surface information. And, so on and so forth. You just, he's not really compressing his forehead, so I probably wouldn't want to do this, right? But you guys get the idea. Yeah, maybe I want this to be a bit higher here, something like that. Anyway, that's all I'll say on that. And lastly, those skin pores then. So let's finish with those like more detailed skin pores then, I suppose. And that's going to be it for today. Yeah, so you guys may have seen the this little ZTL that I have given you guys. Now, I'm not entirely happy with this. As if I should have I feel as if I could do a better version of this, but it's what I have for now. And essentially, the idea with this is that I have simply created a plane. Okay, if you guys wanted to make your own, right? Like it's super simple, right? You just start with a plane 3D. You convert it to polymesh. You subdivide it until you're at 1 million or 4 million, depending on how you feel that day. And then you start to create a bunch of layers once more. So here, create a layer. I will take a move brush. I will turn on AccuCurve on my move brush. And I will simply pull the middle down. Like that. And then, you know, like the thing about skin pores is that if you start looking at some really, really close-up images of these, what you start to realize at some point is that skin pores are not just a hole per se. Let me bring up a nice reference here. But they're rather a structure that's it's very weird looking. Let me go through my references here. That's what I have. They're very weird looking. Skin pores are super weird. Because they're a hole kind of thing. They're sort of a golf ball like concavity on the surface. But they're also there's some tiny little wrinkles in there too, you know? It's not just that it's an elevation of the surface, or rather a depression of the surface, but it also has some tiny little wrinkles in there. Let me bring up, see if I have a good image here. I should have one in here somewhere. Just go through these, go through these, go through these. Yeah, see? You take a look at these. It's not the best reference of this I have. In fact, let me just go see. There's a better one later on. Should have probably prepared that ahead of time. Like, okay. This is what it looks like if you take like an MRI scanner or some stuff like that, and you start to scan the skin pore at different depths, you know? You guys can see the kind of structure that it has. So as you go down in the skin pore, the surface, see how there's all these kind of little wrinkles, essentially, that kind of form around the border of the pore itself. And so skin pores are kind of like that. They have this kind of, little, kind of tiny little wrinkles that kind of comes out of the border of it. And so we kind of want to capture that here too, right? So what I like to do here is to simply create a layer here, as you can see. And first I will create essentially my cavity sort of thing. But at the same time, I'll kind of make sure too that I'm creating it that in a way that's not completely like fully round, because it's going to look a little too geometric. No, it's not going to look all that great. And I like to also build just a slight amount of directionality in there so that the pore is a bit wider on one angle, or on one axis than it is on the other one there. Let me just go ahead here, smooth this out here a little bit. Something like that. Okay, and then I'll create a new layer. Let's use the damp center 2. And let's create those little things there, or maybe damp center 1 would be better in this case. And yeah, then let's make these kind of little wrinkles. Kind of looks something like that. Like skin pores start to look a bit like that. Okay, and now because I have created these as different layers, of course, if I think that this is a little too strong, I can bring this back down. If I want to make these wrinkles a bit stronger, I can boost this here, and so on and so forth, of course. Which is what I have given you guys here. So it's this little pore here. And you guys can see the different layers here, and I've played around with the intensity of these. And you can do that too if you want to tweak it and if you want to have different flavors of it, I guess. You could easily do that. Okay, so the idea is that you start by sculpting like that, a kind of little pore like this that you're going to use afterward. And then you convert this into an alpha that we will afterward apply on the surface. So to convert this to an alpha, it's super simple, guys. You just go to your alpha menu here, and you just do a from mesh. That's it. You just click on that. Go to alpha from mesh, and this will open this little dialog box. Just click OK. And now you have your alpha of your skin pore, and you're ready to start applying that on your surface. So let's create a sphere 3D here, just for demonstration's sake. Let me subdivide that. And now it's applied on my standard brush, because that's what the brush I had selected previously. And you guys can see here that if I swap over to this drag rectangle here, and I boost the intensity of this, I can now start to apply a bunch of pores like these over my surface. Super simple. So let's go to our head. And zoom in on there. Yeah, this is a lot brighter. This is a lot easier to see. I should have tweaked the should have tweaked this from the beginning. The light settings. Let's create a new layer in here. And yeah, so I like to put myself, like, you could go in here and you could start to just hand, and this is not a bad idea because you can actually just place them at different sizes like that, But truth be told, sometimes you also kind of want to go a bit faster than that. So I also kind of like sometimes to, and I think these are too big right now, by the way. But you could also, what I like to do is just to swap this stroke mode over to something called drag dot. And then if I bring the size of this down a little bit, then I can kind of place these at a consistent size like that. So, you go and you place a bunch of stuff. I'm not going to complete it here because we are pretty much out of time. But you kind of do something on that. And then, as I'm sure you are well aware at this point, store a morph target afterward, go back in here, take your morph brush, and you simply start to blend this a bit better like that, so that the extremities of what you have added starts to blend a bit better with the rest of the surface. And that will allow you to add some nicer pores at different places than what you had there previously. Cool, guys. That's it. Wow, that was a long one. It was about 4 hours of pretty intensive ZBrush and other stuff. But yeah, so if I show you guys the final result, I mean, it's not final in any sort of way, but it's simply where I have ended right now. But I'll continue working on this. These skin pores are a bit too blurry for me right now. I'll certainly have to redo them. But yeah, so this is pretty much where I have ended up at this point. All right, so this class has gone on for quite some time. I hope it was interesting. We'll see how long of a Q&A we take because of that, but I kind of want to see the kind of questions that you guys have, and then we'll simply adjust the length based on the questions that you guys ask. So, all right, let's have our Q&A, guys. In a AAA production environment, would a team usually have a choice to use different workflows for tertiary details, hand sculpted versus texturing XYZ, or would they use one specific workflow to keep things consistent among all the characters? Can hand sculpted tertiary details workflow be used for super realistic games, or would you suggest going texture XYZ route for that? So yeah, there's it really helps to think about what do you do in a production environment versus what do you do for fun, what do you do in another context there, because like often when you're in a production environment, there's a few problems using texturing XYZ stuff. Not that there's any problems with the data itself, but I find that a lot of people don't use texturing XYZ data properly. They just buy a bunch of texturing XYZ textures to just slap it on their model and they call it a day, but they don't really take time to really like question, okay, are these tertiary details of the proper intensity, these sorts of things? And so you often wind up having characters which skin starts to look like rock or just isn't very convincingly skin-ish because people just grab these random textures, apply it over the surface, and then that's it, So texturing XYZ, I find that is a good starting point, but if you really want to get the best, nicest folds or best, nicest tertiary details, there's always some manual labor that has to go on top of them, They can be a good base, but I find that people who simply use texturing XYZ data and simply stop at that often do a subpar, have tertiary details of subpar quality because they don't know how to do it. They sort of because they have all this data that is for free in those textures. I mean, they have to pay for the textures, but you get what I mean here. People don't spend enough time worrying about are these tertiary details proper for this character, So, like, depending on the kind of character that you're gonna do, you may want to add, like we've talked about all these different tertiary details that you can have, right? All of this here, all of those, and sure, you'll get a lot of these. Oh yeah, there's veins I haven't talked about. You'll get a lot of these in a texturing XYZ texture, but they won't necessarily be personalized to the character that you're working on. They'll simply be generic looking. Which makes it so that if you really want to communicate something very specific about a character, sometimes some manual labor is necessary, if not, it almost always is, So texturing XYZ in a production environment is a good starting point, but it's not where you end up usually. That's not your end. It's just another tool to express the character that you want to express, as opposed to being an ends in and of itself. So if you look at it that way, then the answer becomes very clear. It's like, yes, you can use those things, but no, you wouldn't always just use that and nothing else. It's a stepping stone to creating something bigger. So if you see texturing XYZ as a tool, just like among other tools that you can use in your toolbox, whether you're in a production environment or not, then you'll start thinking beyond just the texturing XYZ data, and you'll start thinking, okay, like, cool, this is a base. How else can I express the character I'm trying to express here, So there is that. Then there are complexities when you deal with video game characters, because as I've alluded to previously, in a real-time engine, now we'll see with PS5, and stuff like that, because now we can stream bigger textures, you have more memory, these sorts of things. Although that's also true with each console generation I've ever seen. The moment that a console generation switches, people are like, oh my God, we can now afford all the textures in the world, and we don't have to worry about repeating textures anymore. And, every generation, it's always the same story. It's like, you kind of, it's like the sky's the limit at the start of the generation. Like, we can do everything now, But the problem is that, yes, sure, that's what the character art team thinks, and every other department also thinks. So everyone is filling up the memory, being overly ambitious on that. And before you know it, you're back at a point of, oh, so we have to start being smart again about how we use data, So we'll see what happens with PS5, but the streaming, the streaming system is very interesting that they have on PS5, because you can stream in data a lot faster there. So you could theoretically now afford much bigger textures for faces of characters, to the point that it starts to make more sense to have more bespoke textures per character. But the fact still remains that you also have to deal with volume of character creation. There's a lot of characters that need to be produced for a video game. So you still want to be reusing data across different characters to save a bit of time. So you would be reusing probably the same tertiary detail maps across a lot of different heads, so that you can save down on the amount of time that will be spent to produce characters. So what does all of that mean? It means that you may not have the time that you need or the chance that you need to go as crazy as what we're doing right now with very specific tertiary details. But there are still cases, especially main characters, you can expect to have to go to this degree of definition with the tertiary details for sure. So in that optic, all of these sort of textures that you can buy and slap on your character, they're all great starting points, but they're not the end of the process. They're only a stepping stone to creating better characters. So yes, hand sculpted workflow can be used and in fact should be used. Second question, Quicks. When working with several layers, is it okay to have them all turned on while working on a layer in record mode? Or should you turn the other previous layers off? No, it's not necessary to do so. I've seen comments on other forums that they may, yes, they can. Specifically if you use smoothing brushes, you know? Like, if you have a detail on a layer, and you have another layer that is in record mode and you smooth the surface, you will be smoothing the detail of the two layers at the same time, you know, because you're just smoothing whatever is there, you know. So the second layer will inherit the smoothed version of the details of the first one, which makes it so that if you turn off the first layer, then the second one starts to have some really weird stuff in there. So you want to do it. You want to turn off all your layers, but the one that you have in record mode, if you're going to use smoothing. But if you're not smoothing the surface, nah, most cases, no, it doesn't really matter too much. I mean, it's going to matter too with like clay brushes, you know. The clay brushes will actually make a difference too, actually, but once you start using layers and tertiary details, you rarely want to still be using the clay brushes. So in that case, yeah, you would also turn off all your layers, but the one in which you are using the clay brushes. But as I said, it doesn't happen that much that you want to be using the clay brushes after you're at the tertiary detail stage. Are there any specific skin details on the eyelids when they're closed that we should be aware of? Because the high amount of compression that is on the eyelids themselves, there's just a lot of these very, very long, very directional wrinkles there. It's not very hard, you know, like we didn't really have time to talk about those, but, you know, closed eyelid, you know, at some point you really just have to do that too, you know, just to start looking at very high res pictures and be like, oh, okay, so you get, you know, there's not really any skin pores here. But you do get a lot of these kind of very sort of stretch noise like looking tiny little wrinkles there, you know. So you do get a lot of that, you know, which, as you can imagine now, could actually build these. See all the Voronoi aspect to all of these here? This is a directional Voronoi. You just take that, you compress it like that, you apply it, and you're done. But beyond that, there are also even finer details that you also want to add in there, you know. But yeah, for the most part, this is you could do this easily with a directional Voronoi pass. You don't have to close the eyes. Now, of course, if you're in a video game environment, then, you know, this becomes trickier. Yes, it's worth to maybe close the eyes, texture it closed, reopen the eyes, and then bake it like that. But for our purposes right now, yeah, if you had a closed eye, you can just use a directional Voronoi pass on it, or maybe a few ones of them, you know. It's good to combine them too in different directions sometimes. Like just the addition of Voronoi passes going in different directions is very interesting from time to time. Jose, do you think with MetaHuman coming sooner or later, this type of work will become less standard? Or do you foresee MetaHuman as another tool in the pipeline? It's just another tool in the pipeline. Nika, now that Substance is becoming, you know, because like, is it going to do a stylized character for you? No, not really. If you want to do a character that has a style that's slightly different than what MetaHuman gives you, simply have no choice, you know? It's like if you're doing an ultra realistic character, sure, you know, But like, yeah, truth be told, like, we've had texturing XYZ for years. We've had all these things there for years, right? So in that sense, meta-human doesn't really is now suddenly now the not the holy grail that make it so that suddenly you don't have to sculpt tertiary details. It's like no, it's just another option. But like we've had scanned heads along for 10 years now. So it doesn't really change much in that regard. It's just another shortcut for Unreal, but that's it. Like I'm not like it's impressive what they have, but we have to know like these character creator tools, they've been around for a long time. Like ultimately, it's very well put together data that they have, and it's great if that data is exactly what you need. But when you're in a production environment, the data that is stock data like that from a character creator, it's rarely what you need. Like it's rarely the thing that you need. Yeah, it's like if there's ever another Deus Ex that's made and there's another Adam Jensen that needs to be done, you're not just going to use a meta human data and just say that Jensen is done. It's like you still have to just do all of it because it's not a generic character. So where these things become useful, these character creators, is when you need to have generic data. So Square Enix, if you're listening, okay, for Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2, please please start from the meta-human stuff, because the generic characters that you guys have for side quests, NPCs and stuff needs improvement. So for generic characters, yeah, this helps, but you won't suddenly have Barrett made and Cloud made because there is meta-human that is there. So it's just another tool. It's another shortcut that works in certain cases. And once you're in a production environment, you'll realize that these cases are actually very limited. So no, it's not going to replace anyone's job anytime soon. Nikolai saying, now that Substance is becoming more and more powerful, will tertiary details, would you prioritize between on ZBrush or Substance? It depends. Now, you are speaking to someone who's done a tremendous amount of research and tests building tertiary details in Substance, so I certainly know what I'm talking about there. You're back at the same point. Like the answer to all your question, guys, is the same. All of these tools are great when you need generic data, but the moment that you need bespoke data, there is nothing else you can do but to sculpt it. If you want to have a wrinkle in a very specific location in a character's face, there is nothing else that you can do to have that wrinkle in that very specific location. Therefore, no amount of procedural tool is likely to replace the input of a well-trained artist when it comes to getting the exact character across that it is that you want to do, And Substance is the same thing, It's just another tool in there. You can use it. I've done a tremendous amount of tests. I've done a tremendous amount of work. I kind of wanted to show it to you guys. Fortunately, we didn't really have much time to do so, but I have been exploring a little bit things like there's a few tests I've done. These are some lips using my facial recognition system that I've built that are automatically textured using Substance Designer. And so this is another one here, and I've been building Voronoi passes and different directions and stuff like that. So yes, these tools are great as a base, but still there would probably be a need for someone to go in there and be like, no, this wrinkle should be a bit there, you know. But I do believe that yes, you know, like all these things, you know, like you could make the greatest facial texturing tool using Substance Designer, but you're not really replacing anything, because for many years now, you could just go out and buy tertiary details that have been scanned from, like, let's say, a 3D scan store and just apply them on your face, right? So once more here, you're not really kind of saving someone's work, you know? It's like if someone was already minded to not do tertiary details and just find the fastest shortcut to do them, they already have those options at their disposal. So having new tools coming out doesn't really change much. You know, like it's just that basic idea of, well, do you need generic data or do you need bespoke data? You know, and well, the thing about bespoke data is that by definition, it needs to be handcrafted. So I don't see artists, the use for them disappearing anytime soon. But, you know, like there is a difference when we didn't have any bespoke data, or rather any generic data that we could use our disposal ever, you know, like before we had scan data that we could use as far as tertiary details are concerned, you know. There is a moment where everything was hand sculpted, but then again, you know, studios, they just hand sculpted details for a few characters, for a few faces, and then they reuse those hand sculpted details across all their different characters, right? Like on Deus Ex, you know, we had, I don't know, maybe we had like 100 heads in the game in the end. We didn't sculpt tertiary details for 100 heads, you know, we only sculpted tertiary details for, I don't know, maybe 20 of those heads, you know. And all the generic characters, we just sculpted, let's say, a generic tertiary detail map that we applied on all their faces in the engine afterward. So even before there was scan data around, we still had techniques to cut down on time and make sure that we spent minimal amount of time sculpting details, you know. So, you know, you still needed someone at some point to create those tertiary details from hand. But once they were created, you could still reuse them across the board, you know. None of these tools will have an impact as far as character production is concerned for video games, you know. What these things do is that they, like all these tools that come out, all these new scans, all these tools like MetaHuman, they're primarily useful for smaller studios that really simply don't have the budget of time to be able to spend to like create all this data that they need, you know. And for them, generic data is perfectly fine because it's not worth for them to spend the time or the money to create higher fidelity or just bespoke data for all the characters that they have. It's not worth it for the value that they would get out of the time that they would spend out of it. It's not value. It's not worth the time spent. So for them, these tools are very useful. But as I said, a lot of these tools have already been around for a long time, you know. Like, you could go on TurboSquid for the past 15 years and just buy a bunch of clothing if you needed to have clothes for a character somewhere, So, that's been around for a long time. So if you're in a situation where you are in a situation where you simply need to use generic data because you simply do not have the time to handcraft the detail that you need, or you don't have the resources or whatever there, then all these tools that come out are very interesting for you. And then something like Meta Human is simply the next evolution of these generic character creators there. And so for studios that rely on generic assets to be able to put together their productions and complete their productions in reasonable budget or time, then these tools are very, very nice. But what I'm saying is that there's already been tools like these for a long time. So these tools that come out, like Meta Human, they're an evolution, and the data is simply getting better and better, and that's fantastic for these smaller studios. But for bigger studios, no, it doesn't really change anything at all. And same thing here. Like all these things that are more procedural or generic and stuff are not really going to replace people who still do or the need for bespoke assets on a production. When working with facial blend shapes and expressions, would you bake down all the tertiary details that you sculpted, then save as a new file? Let me start that again. Sorry, my mind was still in the previous question there. When working with facial blend shapes and expressions, would you bake down all the tertiary details that you sculpted, then save as a new file and create a brand new set of layers and sculpt? Yes, you would do that. Yes, because you don't want to keep, you want to have a separate file. That's a great point, Quix, and I'm so glad that you brought that up. When you have a file like this where you are creating all these tertiary details and stuff, and you want to have facial expression on the same face, you definitely want to keep these in two separate files, because you don't want to have 12 layers of tertiary details and then have a separate file with, or rather in the same file have all these different layers for all these facial expressions, because you're just never going to see the end of that. So yeah, it makes perfect sense. You bake this out as a displacement map, and then you simply apply the displacement map in this little box here on a different head, on a different ZTL that has your facial expressions in there, so that you have some nice performance and you don't have to deal with all these layers being live. So that's a great question. And yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Now, perhaps just to get back to the sort of the high level, essentially, topic that you're all are mentioning there. I don't want to sound like someone who says well, everything needs to be hand sculpted and that's it, because if I'm in a production environment, I'll use every shortcut that's at my disposal, If I'm in a production environment and there's already some great details that work really well for a face that I have that have been produced in the past, and I can maybe buy for a few bucks off of texturing XYZ, I'm going to do it, I'm going to buy that data and I will apply it and I will use that, because I'm in a production environment. I'm not here to create a portfolio piece, I'm just here to find the most effective way to reach the quality level that the game requires and reach the expressivity that the game requires, So if I can find data that already works, I will use it, But what I'm saying is that a lot of cases, you simply have to go back over your data and tweak it, and you have to know how to add the details that you really want in different zones, and the type of detail that you need in these specific zones. So in that sense, I encourage anyone who's working in a production environment to use all these shortcuts. And if you find a shortcut that gives you the data that you need, you should do it. You should grab it. You should buy it, as opposed to spend the time. Because ultimately, you'll have your portfolio pieces at some point. You can even make your portfolio pieces yourself and over the weekends. It's not true that you necessarily need to handcraft everything for the characters that you have on a production environment because you want to have nice portfolio pieces. That's not true, So ultimately, if I'm in a production environment, I will use all the shortcuts that are at my disposal, And so that's what I want to say on that. All right, guys, it's been a long one, but I hope it was an interesting one. So I guess that's it for today then. If there are no more questions, we will end the stream in just a minute. So thank you all for being here, being troopers. And I will continue working on this head, and I will show you guys what it looks like in a few days once I've had time to improve it a little bit better and continue to work on those tertiary details. I will show you guys once more what it will look like. And that's it. So I hope this was, interesting, that you have learned something from there. And I will speak with you guys next time. I see you guys.